champagne glass shattered against the marble floor. Kennedy stood frozen in the doorway of the master bedroom, her hand still raised from where she'd thrown it. Her chest heaved, her vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. Inside the room, draped across Jared's California king bed in nothing but his expensive white dress shirt, the one Kennedy had pressed and hung in his closet just that morning, was a woman Kennedy had never seen before. A woman with perfect curves that filled out that shirt in ways Kennedy's body never could. Perfect long braids that cascaded over her shoulders like something out of a shampoo commercial. Perfect everything that Kennedy wasn't. The woman looked up from her phone, her lips curving into a slow, cruel smile. "Oh," she said, her voice dripping with amusement. "You must be the help." Kennedy's throat closed up. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what she was seeing. This was it. This was the moment she'd been expecting since the day she met Jared Pierce. Proof that men like him, rich, powerful, devastatingly handsome men who could have anyone, didn't actually fall for women like her. Women who wore the same white button-down shirt 3 days in a row because they only owned 3 shirts total. Women who were too tall, too flat, too plain. Women who looked more like teenage boys than the video vixens these billionaires usually dated. "Kennedy, wait." Jared's voice came from somewhere behind the woman, but Kennedy didn't wait to hear the rest. She ran down the grand staircase with its crystal chandelier that cost more than her entire life, through the marble foyer that always made her footsteps echo like she didn't belong there, out the front door into the cool Seattle evening. She didn't stop running until she reached her beat-up 2005 Honda Civic in the staff parking area, her hands shaking so badly she could barely get her keys out of her messenger bag. The tears came then. Hot and angry and humiliating, she'd been such a fool, a complete and total fool to believe his words, his promises, his late-night confessions about wanting to be a better man. All of it had been lies, pretty lies wrapped up in expensive cologne and designer suits, but lies all the same. Kennedy slammed her palm against the steering wheel, trying to catch her breath between sobs. She'd known better. She'd known from day one that this job was temporary, that whatever weird friendship, or whatever it was, that had developed between her and Jared Pierce couldn't possibly be real. Girls like her didn't get happy endings with guys like him. That only happened in movies. But what Kennedy didn't know, what she couldn't see through her tears as she fumbled to start her car, was that the woman in Jared's bedroom wasn't his lover. She was his cousin Morgan. And upstairs, Jared Pierce was having a complete meltdown because the one woman who'd ever made him want to be worthy of love had just run out of his life. But I'm getting ahead of myself. How did we get here? How did a simple job interview turn into the most complicated, messy, beautiful love story Seattle had ever seen? Let me take you back to where it all started, 3 months earlier, a restaurant in downtown Seattle, and a white shirt that would change everything. Before we dive into Kennedy's incredible journey, I need you to do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now. Tap that notification bell. Drop a comment telling me, have you ever felt like you weren't enough for someone? Because Kennedy's story is about to hit different. Now, let's begin. 3 months earlier, on a sunny Tuesday afternoon near Pike Place Market in Seattle, the smell of fresh fish and coffee filled the air. Kennedy Michelle Taylor wiped down table 7 for the 3rd time, even though it was already spotless. Her manager, Patricia, had already yelled at her twice today for standing around doing nothing. So Kennedy made sure she always looked busy, even when the restaurant was dead. Even when her feet ached from standing in these cheap sneakers for 6 hours straight. Even when all she wanted to do was sit down for 5 minutes and study for her online business management exam that was due tonight at midnight. But Kennedy didn't complain. She never complained, because this job at Harborview Grill paid $9 an hour plus tips, and she needed every single penny. Her white button-down shirt, the same one she'd worn yesterday and the day before that, washed in her apartment sink last night and hung to dry, was starting to show wear at the collar. She'd noticed it this morning and felt that familiar flush of shame creep up her neck. But it was clean. That's what mattered. Kennedy was 24 years old, 5'10" in her bare feet, with warm brown skin and a short tapered haircut that she cut herself in her bathroom mirror to save money. No makeup except for some lip balm because makeup cost money she didn't have. She wore simple black jeans, White sneakers that she scrubbed clean every Sunday, and that white shirt tucked in at the waist, the same outfit she wore every single day, because it was the only outfit she had for work. Patricia's sharp voice cut through her thoughts. Table 12 needs water. Kennedy grabbed the pitcher and headed to table 12, plastering on her customer service smile. Smile faltered when she saw the situation unfolding. A man in an expensive suit had to be at least $2,000. Kennedy had learned to recognize quality even if she couldn't afford it, was leaning way too close to Hannah, one of the younger waitresses. Hannah was barely 19, new to Seattle, and looked terrified. "Come on, sweetheart," the man slurred. His breath reeked of whiskey even though it was only 3 in the afternoon. "Just give me your number. I'll show you a real good time." "Sir, I need to get back to work," Hannah stammered, trying to step back. The man grabbed her wrist. Kennedy's vision went red. She set down the water pitcher on the nearest table and crossed the room in 4 long strides. "Excuse me," Kennedy said, her voice calm, deadly calm, the voice she used when she was about to do something she'd probably regret. "Let her go." Drunk man looked up, his eyes traveling over Kennedy's tall frame with obvious disdain. "Who the hell are you? Her bodyguard?" He laughed. "You look like a stick figure. Get lost." "Chance," Kennedy said quietly. "Let her go, or what?" Kennedy didn't answer with words. She grabbed the pitcher of ice water from table 12 and dumped the entire thing over the man's head. The restaurant went silent. The man sputtered, ice cubes sliding down his expensive suit, his face turning purple with rage. You, he lunged at Kennedy. Big mistake. Kennedy had been taking Krav Maga classes at the community center since she was 16. Self-defense, they called it. The kind of practical fighting that wasn't pretty or flashy but got the job done. She sidestepped his clumsy grab, caught his arm, twisted it behind his back, and had his face pressed against table 12 before he could blink. "Don't move," Kennedy said calmly, holding him there with minimal effort. The other diners started clapping. Hannah was staring at Kennedy like she just witnessed a superhero origin story. And in the corner booth, nursing a coffee and supposedly reading the Seattle Times, a well-dressed older black man in his 50s lowered his newspaper and watched the whole scene with growing interest. His name was Reginald Pierce. But Kennedy didn't know that yet. Patricia came rushing over, her face red with anger, but not at the drunk man, at Kennedy. "What do you think you're doing?" Patricia hissed. "Let him go right now," he assaulted Hannah, Kennedy said, not loosening her grip. "I don't care, you can't just—" Actually, a deep, authoritative voice interrupted. The older man from the corner booth stood up and walked over. "She absolutely can. That's called defending a coworker from assault. I witnessed the whole thing. Should I call the police, or would this gentleman like to leave quietly?" The drunk man went very still. I'll leave," he muttered. Kennedy released him. He scrambled to his feet, grabbed his soggy jacket, and practically ran out of the restaurant. Patricia looked like she wanted to argue, but the older man pulled out his business card and handed it to her. "Reginald Pierce, Pierce Enterprises," he said smoothly. "If there are any issues regarding this young woman's actions, have your legal team contact mine. I'll be happy to provide a statement about how she protected your employee from a lawsuit." Patricia's eyes went wide when she read the card. Pierce Enterprises was one of the biggest tech and real estate companies in Seattle. Everyone knew the name. No issues, Mr. Pierce," Patricia stammered. "Of course not." Reginald nodded, then turned to Kennedy. "Miss, could I have a word with you outside?" Kennedy glanced at Hannah, who nodded that she was okay, then followed the man out to the sidewalk overlooking Elliott Bay. The late afternoon sun sparkled off the water. Tourists wandered past with their Pike Place Market shopping bags. Everything felt surreal. "Not in trouble, am I?" Kennedy asked, crossing her arms over her chest. Reginald laughed. A warm, genuine laugh. "Quite the opposite," he said. "What's your name?" "Kennedy. Kennedy Taylor." "Well, Kennedy Taylor, I've been sitting in that restaurant for 2 hours watching you work." He held up a hand when she started to look uncomfortable. "Not in a creepy way. I'm old enough to be your father. I was supposed to meet my nephew for lunch, but he got caught up in a meeting, so I sat there observing." "Observing what?" Kennedy asked. "You," Reginald said simply. "You cleaned tables that were already clean. You refilled drinks before customers asked. You helped that young waitress carry a heavy tray even though it wasn't your section. You worked harder than anyone else in there, and I bet money you're not getting paid what you're worth." Kennedy shifted uncomfortably. "It's a job. It's beneath you," Reginald corrected. Tell me something, Kennedy. What do you do when you're not waitressing? I'm taking online classes, business management. And I work another job on weekends doing inventory at a warehouse, and I pick up shifts at— Why so many jobs? Reginald interrupted gently. Kennedy hesitated. She didn't usually talk about her personal life with strangers, but something about this man felt safe, trustworthy. Raising my twin brothers, she said quietly. They're 18, freshmen at University of Washington. Our parents died in a car accident a year and a half ago. I need to keep them in school. Reginald's expression softened. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. What happened to your education? I was in my junior year at UW when they died, Kennedy said, trying to keep her voice steady. I had to drop out, couldn't afford tuition for all three of us. The boys are brilliant, they had partial scholarships. I wasn't going to let them give up their dreams. Reginald was quiet for a moment, studying her face. Would you like to make $80,000? He asked. Kennedy blinked. Excuse me, 1 year's salary paid up front, $80,000. You'd work as a housekeeper for my nephew. Live in position if you want it, or you can commute, full benefits. And at the end of the year, if you've done well, we can discuss making it permanent with a raise. Kennedy's head was spinning. That's not possible. Nobody pays housekeepers $80,000. I do, Reginald said. When I find someone worth it, and Kennedy, you're worth it. You don't even know me. I know you protected someone weaker than you without hesitation. I know you work 3 jobs to support your family. I know you're honest. You could have pocketed those tips I saw you split with the other waitresses, but you didn't. And I know you need this opportunity. Kennedy's mind was racing. $80,000, paid up front, that was tuition for the twins for the entire year. That was getting ahead on rent. That was finally having a savings account instead of living paycheck to paycheck. That was breathing room. What's the catch? She asked suspiciously. Reginald smiled. The catch is my nephew. He's difficult. He's a good man underneath all the ice and arrogance, but he's been hurt and he handles it by being cold to people, especially to housekeepers. He's gone through 37 in the past 4 years. 37, Kennedy's eyebrows shot up. He has a habit of getting involved with them romantically, then discarding them when he gets bored. It creates complications. I'm tired of cleaning up his messes, but you— Reginald looked her up and down, not in a creepy way, but assessingly. You're not his type at all, which means you might actually last long enough to bring some stability to his household. Kennedy should have been offended. She should have told this man where to shove his job offer, but instead she felt a strange sense of relief. Not his type, good. That meant she could do this job, collect the money, and not have to worry about unwanted attention from some rich playboy who thought his money could buy anything. When would I start? Kennedy asked. About Monday. That gives you a few days to give notice at your current jobs and get your affairs in order. Kennedy thought about her brothers, about their tuition bills that were due in 2 weeks, about the eviction notice she'd gotten last month that she'd barely managed to avoid, about finally having a chance to breathe. Do it, she said. Reginald handed her another business card, this one with an address in Bellevue. Come to this address Monday morning at 9. Bring whatever you need for the week. We'll work out the details then. He started to walk away, then paused. Oh, and Kennedy, my nephew's name is Jard Pierce. Try not to let his attitude get to you. He's been through some things. He just needs someone who won't take his nonsense. Kennedy looked down at the card, then back up at Reginald. I don't take nonsense from anyone, Mr. Pierce, she said. Rich or not. Reginald grinned. Good, you're going to need that attitude. That night, Kennedy sat in her tiny apartment in Northgate with her laptop balanced on her knees, video calling her brothers who were in their dorm room at the University of Washington campus. Her apartment was small. Correction, it was tiny. A 2-bedroom that she split with her twin brothers, Isaiah and Caleb. Technically, they each had a bedroom, and Kennedy slept on the pull-out couch in the living room. She didn't mind. Well, she minded, but she'd never tell them that. The apartment was clean, Kennedy made sure of that, but it was worn. Second-hand furniture, walls that needed repainting, a kitchen with appliances that made weird noises but still worked if you hit them in the right spot. It was home. Isaiah appeared on screen first. He was the serious one, glasses perched on his nose, wearing a UW engineering hoodie, his room neat and organized behind him. You could see his chest set on the desk and a stack of textbooks that probably weighed more than Kennedy. Then Caleb shoved his face into frame, grinning. He was wearing a gaming headset around his neck, and a t-shirt that said, "I paused my game to be here." His side of the room was controlled chaos, posters on the walls, LED lights, his computer setup taking up half the desk. They looked so much like their father it sometimes hurt Kennedy to look at them. Caleb said, "Please tell me you're calling with good news because I just died 17 times in a row on this boss fight, and I need something positive." "Boss fight problems are your own fault for choosing the mage class," Isaiah said without looking up from whatever he was reading. "Mages are valid, Zay. Your negativity is showing." "Focus, you too," Kennedy interrupted, smiling despite herself. "I have news." Both boys looked at her. "Good news or bad news?" Isaiah asked carefully. "Good news, really good news." Kennedy took a breath. "I got a new job, housekeeping position. It pays $80,000 a year." Silence, then Caleb's jaw dropped. "I'm sorry, what? 80,000? Isaiah leaned closer to the screen, his eyes wide behind his glasses. "Kennedy, that's life-changing money." "I know. We can actually eat something other than ramen money," Caleb practically shouted. I can buy that graphics card. I've been drooling over money." "You're not buying a graphics card," Kennedy said firmly, but she was smiling. "That money is for your tuition, both of you, and rent, and food that isn't ramen." Isaiah was studying her face through the screen. "What's the catch?" "Why does there have to be a catch?" "Because nobody pays housekeepers $80,000 without a catch," Isaiah said quietly. "What is it?" Kennedy sighed. Her brother was too smart for his own good. "Guy who hired me, Reginald Pierce, he owns Pierce Enterprises, said his nephew is difficult. He's gone through 37 housekeepers in 4 years. 37, Caleb's eyes went wide. "Is he a serial killer? Please tell me you're not working for a serial killer." "He's not a serial killer," Kennedy said, though honestly she didn't know. Apparently he has relationship drama with his staff." "But Mr. Pierce said I'm not the nephew's type, so it shouldn't be an issue." Something flickered across Isaiah's face. Hurt maybe, or anger on his sister's behalf. "What does he mean you're not his type?" Isaiah asked, his voice careful. Kennedy shrugged, trying to look unbothered. "I don't know. I'm assuming he dates women who look like Instagram models and I look like, well, me." "You're beautiful, Ken," Caleb said immediately. "If this dude doesn't see that, he's blind." "I'm practical," Kennedy corrected. "And that's fine. I don't need to be beautiful, I need to get paid." Isaiah wasn't convinced, she could tell, but he didn't push it. "When do you start?" he asked instead. "Monday. I'm giving notice at the restaurant tomorrow and at the warehouse. This one job pays more than all 3 of my jobs combined." Isaiah paused and Kennedy saw his eyes get shiny behind his glasses. "Ken, that's incredible." "Can pay tuition on time," Kennedy said, her own throat getting tight. "No more late fees. No more me calling the bursar's office begging for extensions." "You've been calling the bursar's office?" Caleb asked, his usual humor fatting. "Every semester," Kennedy admitted. "But you two don't need to worry about that anymore. This changes everything." Boys were quiet for a moment, then Caleb spoke, his voice softer than usual. "Mom and Dad would be so proud of you." Kennedy's chest tight. She nodded, not trusting her voice. "We're proud of you too," Isaiah added. "You didn't have to do this. You could have let us figure it out on our own, but you put your life on hold for us and we don't say it enough, but we love you, Ken." "So much," Caleb agreed. "You're the best big sister in the entire world." Kennedy wiped her eyes quickly. "Okay, stop before you make me cry. I have an exam to finish tonight." "You're still doing your classes?" Isaiah asked. "Of course. Just because I dropped out of campus doesn't mean I gave up. I'm getting that degree, Zay, just taking the long way around." Isaiah smiled. That rare, genuine smile that reminded her why she did this. "Love you, Ken," he said simply. "Love you too, both of you. Now get back to your homework." And Caleb beat that boss fight. "Already on it." Caleb saluted the camera, the call ended, and Kennedy sat in the quiet of her tiny apartment, staring at the business card on her coffee table. Jarred Pierce. She pulled out her phone and did what any sensible person would do. She Googled him. The first image that popped up made her breath catch. He was gorgeous. There was no getting around that. Tall, had to be at least 6'3". Deep brown skin. A sharp fade haircut that probably cost more than her weekly grocery budget. A neatly trimmed beard. Dark, intense eyes that seemed to look right through the camera. He was wearing a navy suit that fit him like it had been painted on, standing in front of the Pierce Enterprises building, looking every inch the powerful CEO. Kennedy scrolled through more images. Jarred at charity galas with women who looked like supermodels. Jarred at business conferences, commanding a room. Jarred on a yacht. Because of course he had a yacht, surrounded by friends who all looked like they'd stepped out of a luxury lifestyle magazine. Every single woman in his photos had the same look. Curvy, glamorous, feminine in that Instagram baddie kind of way. Kennedy looked down at herself. White shirt. Black jeans. No curves to speak of. Yeah, definitely not his type. Good. She closed her laptop and tried to ignore the small, stupid part of her that felt disappointed about that. Monday morning arrived too quickly. Kennedy pulled up to the address in Bellevue that Reginald had given her, and her jaw nearly hit the floor. The house was ridiculous. She'd known it would be big. Billionaires didn't live in studio apartments, but this was beyond big. This was a 15,000 square foot modern mansion overlooking Lake Washington, with floor-to-ceiling windows that gave a perfect view of the water and the Seattle skyline in the distance. The driveway alone was longer than her entire apartment building. Kennedy pulled up in her beat-up Honda Civic, feeling like a peasant showing up to a castle. Her car made a weird rattling noise as she parked in what she hoped was the staff area. She grabbed her duffel bag. Everything she owned fit in one duffel bag and her messenger bag, and walked up to the front door. Before she could knock, it swung open. Reginald Pierce stood there, smiling. "Kennedy, right on time, I like that." "Mr. Pierce," Kennedy said, "call me Reg. Everyone does." He stepped aside to let her in. The foyer was all marble and modern art and a crystal chandelier that probably cost more than Kennedy would make in 5 years, even with this new salary. Her sneakers squeaked on the floor. "Worry about that," Reg said, noticing her discomfort. "This is your home now, too. Well, your workplace, but you're welcome to use the staff quarters if you'd like to live here. Completely separate entrance, full privacy." "I think I'll commute," Kennedy said. "My brothers are in the dorms, but I like having my own space." Completely understandable. Reg led her through the house, pointing out rooms as they walked. "Kitchen through there, you're welcome to anything in it." Living room, library, home gym. Jared's office is upstairs, second door on the left. His bedroom is the master suite at the end of the hall. You'll be responsible for general housekeeping, cleaning, laundry, some meal prep if you're comfortable with that. "Can cook," Kennedy said. "Nothing fancy, but I can follow a recipe." "Perfect." Reg paused at the bottom of the grand staircase. "I should mention, Jared doesn't know I hired you yet." Kennedy stopped walking. "I'm sorry, what? He was supposed to be here this morning to meet you, but he's avoiding me because he knows I'm upset about the last housekeeper situation." Reg sighed. "He'll be home this evening. I'll introduce you then." "What happened with the last housekeeper?" Kennedy asked. She threw a lamp at him when he ended things. "Had to pay for damages and a settlement. Like I said, complications." Kennedy's eyebrows shot up. "Maybe she had a good reason to throw the lamp." Reg laughed. "You know I like you already. Come on, let me show you where everything is." Kennedy spent the day getting familiar with the house. It was too big, too empty, too much expensive stuff that made her nervous to touch. But it was also beautiful in a cold, impersonal way, like a museum instead of a home. By 6 in the evening, Kennedy had cleaned 3 of the guest bedrooms, done 2 loads of laundry, and was in the kitchen figuring out the intimidating professional-grade appliances when she heard the front door open. Voices drifted down the hallway. "Want to talk about it, Uncle Reg?" "Bad. We're talking about it." Kennedy stepped out of the kitchen and got her first in-person look at Jared Pierce. The photos hadn't done him justice. He was taller than she'd expected. Broader. He moved with the kind of confidence that came from never being told no in his entire life. He was wearing a charcoal suit with the jacket slung over one shoulder, his white shirt unbuttoned at the collar, his sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms that were frankly more muscular than Kennedy had expected. He looked tired, frustrated, like he'd had a long day and wanted to be left alone. Then his eyes landed on Kennedy. He stopped mid-step. His gaze traveled over her, white shirt, black jeans, messenger bag still slung over her shoulder, short hair, bare face, and something flickered across his expression, confusion. Then assessment, then dismissal. "Who's this?" Jared asked, looking at his uncle. "This," Reg said, putting a hand on Kennedy's shoulder, "is Kennedy Taylor, your new housekeeper." Silence. Jared's jaw tightened. "Excuse me, Kennedy, this is my nephew, Jared Pierce. Jared, Kennedy will be managing the household from now on." Jared turned to his uncle, ignoring Kennedy completely. "Can I speak to you in private? Anything you have to say, you can say in front of Kennedy." "She works here now," Jared's eyes went cold. That same cold that Kennedy had seen in the photos, but worse in person, like looking at a glacier. I didn't approve this hire, Jared said, his voice flat. You don't have to approve it. I'm still part owner of this company and I handle staffing for your personal life since you've proven you can't be trusted with it. Uncle Reg. I already paid her, Reg interrupted. $80,000, full year up front. Jared's head whipped toward Kennedy. He paid you $80,000, Kennedy lifted her chin. Yes. What could you possibly? He stopped himself, his jaw working. Uncle Reg, we need to talk now. No, Reg crossed his arms. Kennedy stays, end of discussion. Now I have a meeting across town. Kennedy, make yourself at home. Jared, try not to be insufferable. Reg walked out, leaving Kennedy and Jared alone in the foyer. The silence was heavy, uncomfortable. Jared stared at her like she was a problem he needed to solve. Kennedy stared back, refusing to look away first. Finally, Jared spoke. Let me make something very clear, he said, his voice cold and controlled. I don't want you here. I didn't ask for you. And the moment I can legally get rid of you without my uncle losing his investment, you're gone. Understood? Kennedy should have been intimidated. Should have stuttered or apologized or tried to make him like her. Instead, she smiled, sweet as honey. Understood, Mr. Pierce, she said. I'll do my job, collect my paycheck, and stay out of your way. Shouldn't be hard. This house is big enough that we probably won't even see each other most days. Something flashed in his eyes. Surprise, maybe. He clearly wasn't used to people not falling over themselves to please him. Good, he said curtly. I'm going upstairs. Don't disturb me. He walked past her without another word, taking the stairs 2 at a time. Kennedy stood in the foyer, listening to his footsteps fade, then disappear as a door slammed shut somewhere above. She looked around the massive, empty house and let out a breath. Well, she said to nobody, this is going to be interesting. 1 week later, Kennedy had figured out exactly what kind of game Jared was playing. The first week was exactly what Kennedy expected. Jared Pierce was a nightmare. Not in the yelling, throwing things, obvious villain kind of way. In the subtle, passive-aggressive, death by 1,000 cuts kind of way. On Tuesday, he complained that his breakfast eggs were too runny. On Wednesday, he said they were too firm. On Thursday, Kennedy made them exactly the same way she had on Tuesday, and he said they were perfect. She didn't point out the inconsistency. On Friday, he called her into his office at 6 in the morning, an hour before her shift started, to tell her his entire closet needed to be reorganized. By color, he said, not looking up from his computer. Then by fabric weight. Then by season, should be done by noon. Kennedy looked at the walk-in closet that was bigger than her childhood bedroom, filled with thousands of dollars worth of designer clothes. Of course, Mr. Pierce, she said. I'll get right on it. She had it done by 11:30. When Jared came to inspect, he'd pointed at 2 identical navy suits and said, "These are wrong. Navy and midnight blue are switched." Kennedy had stared at the suits. They were the exact same color. My mistake, she'd said flatly. I'll fix it right away. She switched them. He left without another word. By the end of the week, Kennedy had figured out the game. He was testing her, trying to make her quit, pushing her buttons, waiting for her to snap or cry or storm out so he could tell his uncle, see, she couldn't handle it. But Kennedy had survived worse. She'd survived mean girls in middle school who called her ironing board and surfboard. Survived an ex-boyfriend who told her she'd be prettier if she filled out more. Survived watching her parents' caskets lowered into the ground while trying to stay strong for 2 teenage boys who were falling apart. Jared Pierce with his petty complaints and his cold stares was nothing compared to that, so she smiled. She stayed calm. She did her job flawlessly, and every time he tried to get a rise out of her, she responded with the same infuriating politeness. Of course, Mr. Pierce. Right away, Mr. Pierce. Whatever you need, Mr. Pierce. By Friday evening, she could see the frustration building behind his eyes. He wasn't used to this. Wasn't used to someone who didn't crumble under his cold demeanor. Good. Let him be frustrated. Kennedy had brothers to feed, bills to pay, and a degree to finish. She didn't have time for billionaire tantrums. Saturday afternoon arrived, and Kennedy found herself at the QFC grocery store in Bellevue, pushing a cart and trying not to have a heart attack at the prices. She hated grocery shopping. Not because she didn't like food, she loved food, but because grocery stores in Bellevue were expensive and she always felt out of place. But Jared needed groceries and part of her job was keeping the kitchen stocked, so here she was. Organic strawberries, $12. $12 for strawberries. Kennedy grabbed the regular ones for $4 and moved on. She was in the pasta aisle, debating whether Jard would notice if she bought the store brand instead of the fancy imported Italian brand, when she heard a familiar voice. "No, I specifically said I wanted the reservations for 8, not 7. Kennedy looked up. Jard was 3 aisles over in the wine section, his phone pressed to his ear, wearing designer jeans and a black Henley that fit him way too well. Next to him was a woman. Gorgeous, obviously. Petite, curvy, wearing a tight dress that probably cost more than Kennedy's rent. Long hair in perfect waves. Full makeup, everything Kennedy wasn't. The woman was hanging on Jard's arm, laughing at something he said. Kennedy looked down at herself. White shirt, black jeans, sneakers. Messenger bag. She looked like she'd wandered in from a different dimension. Before she could duck into another aisle, Jard turned and made direct eye contact. For a second, something flickered across his face. Then he turned away, dismissing her completely like she was part of the scenery. Fine. Kennedy went back to debating pasta. She was reaching for the store brand when someone bumped into her from behind. Hard, Kennedy stumbled, her hand hitting the shelf and knocking over several boxes of pasta. "Watch where you're going," a sharp voice said. Kennedy turned. The woman who'd been with Jard was standing there, her expression cold. "I'm sorry," Kennedy said automatically, bending down to pick up the boxes. "I didn't—" "You're the help, right?" the woman interrupted. "From Jard's house," Kennedy straightened slowly. "I'm the housekeeper, yes." Woman looked her up and down with obvious disdain. "Figures, you look like the help." Kennedy felt heat creep up her neck. "Excuse me, I mean look at you." The woman waved a manicured hand at Kennedy's outfit. "Do you own anything that isn't from a thrift store?" Kennedy's fingers clenched around the box of pasta. "Stay professional, stay calm, you need this job." "Is there something I can help you with?" Kennedy asked, keeping her voice even. "Yeah, stay away from Jard." Kennedy blinked. I work for him, I can't exactly." "I've seen women like you before," the woman said, stepping closer. "You think because you work in his house you have some kind of special access, that he might notice you. But let me make this very clear, men like Jard don't date women who look like teenage boys. He likes women, real women with curves and style and— Is there a problem here?" Jared's voice cut through the aisle like a knife. He was standing a few feet away, his expression unreadable. The woman's demeanor changed instantly. She smiled, all sweetness and light. "No problem, baby. I was just chatting with your housekeeper." "Looked like more than chatting," Jard said, his voice cold. "She bumped into me," the woman said with a little laugh. "I was just making sure she was okay." Jared's eyes shifted to Kennedy. "Is that what happened?" Kennedy could tell the truth, could expose this woman for the mean girl she clearly was, but she thought about the $80,000, about her brother's tuition, about her degree. "Yes," Kennedy lied. "I wasn't watching where I was going. My fault." Jared studied her face for a long moment. Kennedy kept her expression neutral. Finally, he nodded. "Let's go, Vanessa." "Woman, Vanessa," shot Kennedy one last triumphant look before linking her arm through Jared's. They walked away, leaving Kennedy standing alone in the pasta aisle with her store-brand boxes and her white shirt and the growing certainty that this job was going to be harder than she'd thought. Not because of Jard. Because of the reminder that she would never, ever be the kind of woman men like him wanted. And for some stupid reason that hurt more than it should. That night, Kennedy let herself into the mansion through the staff entrance around 8. She'd put away all the groceries, prepped meals for the week, and was exhausted. All she wanted was to go home, take a shower, and collapse on her couch. But as she walked through the kitchen toward the front door, she heard voices from the living room. Jard's voice. And Uncle Red's. Kennedy knew she shouldn't eavesdrop, but she also knew they were probably talking about her. She crept closer, staying out of sight. "Care what you paid her," Jard was saying. "I want her gone." Red's voice was calm. "She's done excellent work all week. The house has never been cleaner. She's what?" Jared, silence then. "She doesn't fit." "Doesn't fit what?" "This house. This life. She walks around in those cheap clothes looking like she's auditioning for a Gap commercial from 2005. "It's embarrassing." Kennedy's chest tightened. "Embarrassing," Reg repeated, his voice flat. "The woman who works harder than anyone I've ever met is embarrassing because she doesn't wear designer labels. You know what I mean? Actually, I don't. Explain it to me." "She's not." Jard stopped. "Forget it. I just want her gone." "Well, that's too bad," Reg said. "Because I made a bet with you, 6 months. If Kennedy lasts 6 months without you sleeping with her or driving her away, you prove to me that you're capable of treating a woman with respect." If she quits or you fire her before then, I pull out of the business. That's not fair. Fair. Reg's voice rose. You've gone through 37 women in 4 years, Jard. 37. You seduce them, sleep with them, then discard them like they're nothing. And I'm the one who has to deal with the aftermath. The crying, the threats, the lawsuits. I'm done. Kennedy is your last chance. I'm not attracted to her, Jard said defensively. She's not my type, so your bet is pointless. Then it should be easy. Footsteps. Kennedy quickly moved away from the doorway, slipping out the front entrance before either of them could see her. She made it to her car before the tears came. Not his type. Cheap clothes, embarrassing, she knew all of that already. Had known it her whole life. But hearing it said out loud in that cold, dismissive voice hurt worse than she'd expected. Kennedy sat in her car, hands gripping the steering wheel, taking deep breaths. You don't need him to like you. You need him to pay you 6 months. She could survive 6 months of being invisible, of being not his type, of being the help who didn't fit. She'd survived worse. Kennedy started her car. It made that rattling noise again and drove home. Behind her, the mansion's lights glowed against the dark Seattle sky. Cold, beautiful, empty, just like the man who lived there. 2 nights later, at 2 in the morning, Kennedy's phone buzzed on her nightstand, dragging her out of a deep sleep. She grabbed it, squinting at the screen. The text was from Jard Pierce. Come to the house. Now, emergency. Kennedy's heart jumped. She was out of bed, pulling on jeans and her white shirt, grabbing her keys. Emergency could mean anything. Fire, break-in, medical issue. She made it to the mansion in 15 minutes, breaking every speed limit. The front door was unlocked. Kennedy rushed inside. Mr. Pierce, she called out. Where are you? Upstairs. His voice came from the 2nd floor. My office. Kennedy took the stairs 2 at a time and burst into his office. Jard was standing in the middle of the room, looking completely fine. Not hurt. Not in danger. He pointed at the corner near his private bathroom. There, he said. Kennedy followed his finger. In the corner of the ceiling, barely visible, was a spider. A tiny brown spider, no bigger than a dime. Kennedy stared at the spider, then at Jard, then back at the spider. You called me here at 2 in the morning, Kennedy said slowly, for a spider. It's a brown recluse, Jard said. It's a house spider. How do you know? Because I'm not an idiot. Kennedy walked over, grabbed a tissue from his desk, stood on her tiptoes, and captured the tiny creature. She walked to the window, opened it, and released it outside. Done, she turned back to Jard. He was staring at her like she'd just performed brain surgery. That's it, he asked. What did you expect? An exorcism? I thought. Aren't you scared of spiders? Why would I be scared of spiders? Jared's jaw worked. Most women are. Women, you know, Kennedy corrected. I'm not most women, Mr. Pierce. Something flickered in his expression, something she couldn't read. You came all the way here at 2 in the morning to deal with a spider, he said. You texted me saying it was an emergency. You just came, no questions. That's my job. They stood there, the quiet of the night pressing in around them. Jard looked different at 2 in the morning, less polished. His hair was mussed like he'd been running his hands through it. He was wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt. No shoes. He looked almost human. I'm terrified of spiders, Jard said suddenly. Have been since I was a kid. It's irrational, I know, but I can't handle them. It was the first real thing he'd said to her since she'd started working here. The first crack in that ice-cold armor. Kennedy softened just slightly. Everyone's afraid of something, she said. I'm afraid of heights. Can't even climb a stepladder without getting dizzy. Really? Jard asked. Really? Jared almost smiled. Almost. Thanks, he said, for coming. You're welcome, Mr. Pierce. Jared. Kennedy blinked. What? Call me Jard. The Mr. Pierce thing is, it's weird. Okay, Kennedy said. Jard. He looked at her then. Really looked at her. Not the dismissive once-over from the grocery store. Not the cold assessment from their first meeting. Actually looked like he was seeing her for the first time. You should go home, he said finally. Get some sleep. I'm sorry I woke you up for something stupid. It wasn't stupid, Kennedy said. You were scared. That's not stupid. Something in his expression shifted. Good night, Kennedy, he said softly. Good night, Jard. Kennedy left, her heart doing weird things in her chest that she absolutely did not want to analyze. The next day, Wednesday afternoon, Jard sat in his office at Pierce Enterprises headquarters in downtown Seattle. The building was on the 76th floor of Columbia Center, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay and the Puget Sound beyond. His best friend and CFO, Diego Martinez, sat across from him, reviewing quarterly reports. But Diego kept looking up from the spreadsheets with an expression that said he knew something was up. Bro, you've checked your phone 15 times in this meeting, Diego said finally. Jared put his phone face down on the conference table and tried to look professional. I'm waiting on an important email, he lied. Diego leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. This wouldn't have anything to do with Uncle Reg's latest hire, would it? Why would it have anything to do with that? Because you've been weird all week. Distracted. You snapped at 3 different executives for things that normally wouldn't even register. And now you're checking your phone every 30 seconds like you're waiting for a text from your mom. Jared scowled. I'm not waiting for a text from my mom. You are waiting for a text from someone. Martinez had been Jared's best friend since college. They'd been roommates at the University of Washington, pledged the same fraternity, started this company together after graduation. Diego was brilliant with numbers, CFO material from day one. He was also happily married to his high school sweetheart Sophia, had a moral compass that wouldn't quit, and had zero tolerance for Jared's nonsense, which made him both invaluable and incredibly annoying. The new housekeeper is fine. Jared said curtly. She does her job, end of story. What's she like? Diego asked. Does it matter? Humor me, Jared sighed. She's different from the others. Different how? She doesn't care that I'm rich. Doesn't try to impress me. Shows up, does her work, leaves. He paused, searching for the word. Unbothered. Diego's eyebrows rose. Unbothered, that's what you're going with. What else would I say? I don't know, man. Maybe that she's the first woman in 4 years who hasn't fallen over herself trying to get your attention, and it's driving you crazy. It's not driving me crazy. You called her at 2 in the morning about a spider. Jared froze. How do you know about that? Diego grinned. Sophia's cousin works at the front desk downstairs. Saw Kennedy rushing into the building at 2:30 a.m. looking panicked. Word travels fast. Was an emergency, Jared said. It was a spider, Jared. Potentially deadly spider. A house spider that she removed in 3 seconds while you probably stood there looking terrified. Jared glared at his best friend. I hate you. You don't. You need me because I'm the only person in your life who calls you on your crap. Diego leaned forward. Here's what I think is happening. You've dated, 50 women in the years I've known you. I didn't date them. Exactly. You collected them like baseball cards. Pretty shallow, easily impressed by your money and your face. You'd sleep with them, get bored, move on. Rinse and repeat. Jared's jaw tightened. But now, Diego continued, you've met a woman you can't collect. A woman who looks at you and sees, what? A job, a paycheck, not a prize, not a conquest, just some dude who needs his house cleaned. Your point? Jared asked. My point is you don't know what to do with that. For the first time in your adult life, you've met someone who doesn't want anything from you except the salary Uncle Reg already paid her. And it's messing with your head. It's not messing with my head. Bro, you called her about a spider at 2 a.m. Your head is a mess. Jared stood up, gathering his papers. This meeting is over. Running away won't change the truth, Diego called after him. Jared didn't answer. Because the truth was, Diego was right. And Jared had no idea what to do about it. Friday evening arrived and Kennedy was in the mansion's kitchen making dinner. Not for herself. She usually ate at home. But Jared had mentioned that morning that he'd be working late and would appreciate something ready when he got back. So she was making baked chicken, roasted vegetables, and rice. Simple, healthy, nothing fancy. The kitchen smelled amazing. Kennedy was chopping carrots when she heard footsteps behind her. Smells good. She turned. Jared was standing in the doorway, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, looking tired. Should be ready in 20 minutes, Kennedy said. You didn't have to do this. You asked for dinner. I'm making dinner. I meant you didn't have to make it from scratch. You could have ordered something. Kennedy shrugged. This is cheaper and probably healthier. Jared walked further into the kitchen, leaning against the counter. He watched her work for a moment. Very efficient, he said. Thank you, Kennedy said. That wasn't an insult, I've noticed. You don't waste movements. Everything you do has a purpose. Kennedy glanced at him, surprised. Martial arts training. My instructor used to say economy of motion. Don't do anything that doesn't serve a purpose. You do martial arts? Jared asked. Krav Maga. Been training since I was 16. Interest flickered in Jared's eyes. That's the Israeli self-defense system, right? Right, very practical. No flashy moves, just what works. Fits you, Jared said. Kennedy wasn't sure if that was a compliment or not, so she just nodded and went back to chopping. Can I ask you something? Jared said after a moment, sure. Do you always wear the same outfit? Kennedy's hand stilled on the knife. Here it was, the question she'd been waiting for, the judgment she knew was coming. Because I own 3 shirts and 2 pairs of pants, she said evenly. I wash one every night so I have a clean one for the next day. It's practical. You could buy more clothes, Jard said. You have the money now. That money is for my brother's tuition and living expenses, not for me. You could spare $50 for another shirt. Kennedy set down the knife and turned to face him fully. Mr. Pierce. Jared. Jared, she corrected. I appreciate your concern, but I don't need more clothes. What I need is to make sure my brothers finish college. What I need is to finish my own degree. What I need is stability and savings and a future that doesn't involve working 3 jobs just to survive. Clothes are the last thing on my priority list. She expected him to argue, to make some comment about how she represented his household and should dress better. Instead, he just nodded. Fair enough, he said. They stood there in silence, the kitchen filling with the smell of roasting vegetables. Do you like football? Jard asked suddenly. Kennedy blinked. What? Football? American football? Seahawks? Yeah, born and raised in Washington, it's basically required. The game's on Sunday. You could, if you wanted, watch it here. Better TV than most people have at home. He was Jard Pierce inviting her to watch football with him. Kennedy studied his face, looking for the catch. Why? She asked. Why what? Why would you want me to watch football with you? Jared shifted, looking uncomfortable. I don't know, you seem like you'd actually know what you're talking about, unlike most of the women He stopped. Forget it, bad idea, Kennedy said quickly. I mean, yeah, okay, I could watch the game here on Sunday. Something that might have been relief crossed Jard's face. Okay, he said. I'll order pizza. Okay, they looked at each other. The timer went off. Kennedy pulled the chicken out of the oven, plated everything, and set it on the kitchen island. Enjoy, she said, grabbing her messenger bag. I'll see you Monday, Kennedy, Jard said. She paused at the door. Thank you, Jard said, for dinner and for everything this week. I know I've been difficult. You've been testing me, Kennedy said, seeing if I'd quit. I get it. I'm sorry. She wasn't expecting that. Apology accepted, she said. She left before things could get weird. But as she drove home, she couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd looked at her when she'd turned down new clothes, like he was seeing something he hadn't expected. Something that interested him. Kennedy shook her head, pushing the thought away. Don't be stupid. You're not his type. He said so himself. This is just a job. Nothing more. All right, y'all, we need to talk. Kennedy just got invited to watch football with a billionaire who supposedly can't stand her. Jard just apologized for being difficult, which, if you know anything about rich men with egos, is basically a miracle. And Uncle Reg made a bet that's about to blow up in everyone's faces. If you're hooked, drop a comment telling me. Do you think Kennedy should trust Jard, or is this just another game? Let's continue the story. Sunday morning came with gray Seattle skis and the promise of rain. Kennedy stood in front of her tiny bathroom mirror, staring at her reflection and questioning every life choice that had led her to this moment. She was about to spend an entire afternoon watching football with Jard Pierce. The same Jard Pierce who'd called her embarrassing. The same Jard Pierce who'd said she didn't fit in his world. The same Jard Pierce who'd also apologized, invited her over and looked at her like maybe, just maybe, he was starting to see her as an actual human being instead of just the help. Kennedy splashed cold water on her face and gave herself a stern look in the mirror. It's just football, she told her reflection. You watch football. He watches football. 2 people can watch football without it meaning anything. Reflection didn't look convinced. Neither was she. Kennedy pulled on her usual outfit, white button-down shirt, black jeans, white sneakers, and grabbed her messenger bag. She stopped by her laptop and pulled up the Seahawks roster, studying the stats she'd already memorized. If she was going to do this, she was going to be prepared. She would not give Jard Pierce any reason to look down on her. Not today. The drive from Northgate to Bellevue took 30 minutes in Sunday traffic. Kennedy's Honda made its usual concerning rattle as she pulled up to the mansion, and she sent up a silent prayer that the car would last at least another year, just one more year. That's all she needed. She parked in the staff area and walked up to the front door, her stomach doing nervous flips that she absolutely refused to acknowledge. Before she could knock, the door swung open. Jard stood there, and Kennedy's brain short-circuited for a solid 3 seconds. He wasn't wearing a suit. For the first time since she'd met him, Jard Pierce was dressed casually. Black joggers, A fitted gray Seahawks t-shirt that showed off shoulders and arms that had definitely seen the inside of a gym. His fade was fresh, his beard neatly trimmed, and he was barefoot. Something about seeing his bare feet felt weirdly intimate, and Kennedy immediately looked away. "You came," Jard said, and there was genuine surprise in his voice. "You invited me," Kennedy replied. "Did you think I wouldn't show up? Honestly, I thought you might change your mind." "Don't say things I don't mean," Kennedy said. "If I agree to something, I follow through." Something shifted in Jard's expression. "Respect, maybe. Come in," he said, stepping aside. "Game starts in 20 minutes. I ordered pizza. Hope you like pepperoni." "Pepperoni's fine," Kennedy said, following him inside. She'd been in this house dozens of times over the past 2 weeks, but it felt different today. Less like a workplace and more like, she didn't know what, something else. Jard led her to a room she'd never been in before, a media room with a TV that had to be at least 80 inches mounted on the wall. Leather recliners faced the screen, and there was a mini fridge in the corner stocked with drinks. Kennedy stopped, searching for words. "This is a lot of TV. My one indulgence," Jard said with a slight smile. "I don't care about fancy cars or designer watches, but football. Football deserves a proper setup." Kennedy felt a reluctant smile tug at her lips. "Okay, I can respect that." Doorbell rang. Jard went to grab the pizza while Kennedy settled into one of the recliners, trying not to think about how comfortable it was. Trying not to think about how much this single chair probably cost. Trying not to think about how normal this felt. Jard came back with 2 pizza boxes, paper plates, and napkins. He set everything on the coffee table between them and grabbed 2 bottles of water from the mini fridge. "Pre-game show's already on," he said, settling into the recliner next to hers. "Fair warning, I get loud during games." "So do I," Kennedy admitted. "My brothers and I used to watch games together before they went to college. Our neighbors complained about the noise more than once." Jared laughed. Actually laughed. A real, genuine laugh that transformed his entire face. Kennedy's heart did a weird little flip that she absolutely was not going to analyze. The pregame show gave way to kickoff. And for the first quarter, Kennedy forgot to be nervous. She forgot that Jard was a billionaire and she was his housekeeper. She forgot about the uncomfortable conversation she'd overheard about being not his type, about all the reasons this was a terrible idea. She just watched football and argued about plays. That was pass interference. Kennedy shouted at the TV. "Are these refs blind?" "Nah, the receiver initiated contact," Jard countered. Clean play. He practically tackled him. He was going for the ball. They both turned to look at each other, and Kennedy realized they were both on their feet, gesturing at the TV like the refs could hear them through the screen. Jard's eyes were bright with amusement. "You really know football." "I told you I did," Kennedy said, sitting back down. "Born and raised in Washington. My dad used to take me and the twins to games at the stadium when we were kids. We couldn't afford good seats, but we were there." Something in Jard's expression softened. That's a good memory." "Yeah," Kennedy said quietly. "It is." They watched in companionable silence for a few minutes, then Jard spoke. "My dad took me to games too," he said. "Before he died, it was the only time he wasn't working, the only time he was just Dad, not CEO of Pierce Enterprises. Just a guy watching football with his son." Kennedy looked over at him. Jard was staring at the TV, but she could tell he wasn't really seeing it. "Long ago did he pass?" she asked gently. 5 years. Heart attack in his office. He was 53. Jard's jaw tightened. "Worked himself to death building this company, and then he left it all to me." "That's a lot of pressure," Kennedy said. "Yeah," Jard looked at her. "People don't get that. They see the money and the house and the success, and they think I'm lucky. They don't see the weight of it, the expectation that I'll live up to what he built, that I won't let it all fall apart." Kennedy understood that feeling more than he knew. "When my parents died," she said slowly, "everyone kept telling me how strong I was, how amazing I was for taking care of my brothers. And I smiled and said thank you, but inside I was terrified. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just trying not to drown." Jared's eyes searched her face. "Are you still trying not to drown?" "Every day," Kennedy admitted. "But I'm getting better at swimming." They held each other's gaze for a long moment. Something passed between them, understanding, recognition, 2 people carrying weight they never asked for. The TV erupted with cheering as the Seahawks scored a touchdown, breaking the moment. Kennedy jumped up, fist pumping the air. "Yes, that's what I'm talking about." Jared was on his feet too, grinning. "Did you see that throw? Perfect spiral." And the catch? Toe tapped the end zone like a pro. They were standing close. Really close. Close enough that Kennedy could smell his cologne, something expensive and woodsy that made her want to lean in. She stepped back quickly, sitting down and grabbing another slice of pizza to give her hands something to do. Halftime came and Jard muted the TV during the commercials. "Can I ask you something?" he said. Kennedy tensed slightly. "Sure. Business management, for your degree, I mean." "Why that specifically?" Kennedy relaxed a little. This was safe territory. "I want to open my own security consulting firm," she said, "combining my Krav Maga training with business knowledge. I want to teach women self-defense and help them feel safe, and maybe expand into corporate security training eventually." Jared's eyebrows rose. That's actually brilliant. There's a huge market for that." "I know," Kennedy said. "I've done the research, written business plans in my spare time. I just need to finish my degree and save up enough capital to get started." "Much would you need for startup capital?" Kennedy laughed. "More than I have, probably around $50,000 for the first year. Rent for a training space, insurance, marketing, equipment. It adds up fast." Jared was quiet for a moment and Kennedy could practically see the wheels turning in his head. "Don't," she said. "Don't what?" "Don't offer to give me the money." Jared looked surprised. "How did you?" "Because I know that look," Kennedy said firmly. "That's your I can fix this with money look, and I appreciate it, I really do, but I need to do this myself. I need to earn it, otherwise it won't feel like mine." Jared studied her for a long moment. "You're the most stubborn person I've ever met." "Thank you," Kennedy said with a smile. "That wasn't a compliment. I'm taking it as one anyway." Jared shook his head, but he was smiling, actually smiling. The second half of the game was even more intense than the first. The score was tied going into the fourth quarter and both Kennedy and Jard were on the edge of their seats. With 2 minutes left, the Seahawks were down by 3. They had the ball on the opponent's 40-yard line. "Going to run it," Jard said. "Set up the field goal." "Way," Kennedy argued. "They're going for the touchdown. Their kicker's been shaky all game." $20 says they run it and kick the field goal." Kennedy looked at him. "You want to bet with me?" "Why not, unless you're scared you'll lose," Kennedy grinned. "You're on." They watched, both barely breathing as the play unfolded. The quarterback dropped back, looked for an open receiver, found one in the end zone. The ball spiraled through the air in perfect slow motion. The receiver jumped, caught it. Touchdown. Kennedy screamed, jumping up and down like a kid on Christmas morning. Yes, I told you, pay up, Pierce." Jared was laughing, pulling out his wallet. "That was a risky call." "That was the right call," Kennedy corrected, holding out her hand. Jard handed her a $20 bill and their fingers brushed. The contact sent electricity shooting up Kennedy's arm. She pulled back quickly, stuffing the money in her pocket and trying to ignore the way her heart was racing. The game ended with a Seahawks victory and Kennedy felt lighter than she had in months. "That was amazing," she said, gathering up the pizza boxes to throw away. "Thank you for inviting me." "Thank you for coming," Jard said. He paused. "Same time next week." Kennedy looked up, surprised. "You want to do this again?" "Why not? Unless you don't want to." Kennedy should say no, should put distance between them. Should remember that he was her boss and she was his employee and this was crossing lines that shouldn't be crossed. But all she said was, "Yeah, same time next week." Jared's smile was slow and genuine. "Good." Kennedy grabbed her messenger bag and headed for the door. Jard walked her out, which was new. He usually just stayed wherever he was when she left. They stood on the front steps, the late afternoon sun breaking through the Seattle clouds. "Drive safe," Jard said. "I will," Kennedy replied. She was halfway to her car when his voice stopped her. "Kennedy," she turned. "Yeah, you were right. About the touchdown. You know football better than most of the guys I watch games with." Kennedy felt warmth spread through her chest. "Thanks, Jard." She drove home with a smile on her face and $20 in her pocket and a feeling that something had shifted between them, something that felt dangerous and exciting and terrifying all at once. Monday morning, Kennedy arrived at the mansion at her usual time to find Jard already in the kitchen making coffee. "Morning," he said, and his voice was different, warmer. "Morning," Kennedy replied, setting down her messenger bag. "I was thinking," Jard said, pouring coffee into 2 mugs, "you should take Sundays off. You've been working 7 days a week since you started. That's not sustainable." Kennedy blinked. "I don't mind, I mind," Jard interrupted. "Everyone needs a day off. Take Sundays. Spend time with your brothers or study or just rest. You've earned it." He handed her one of the coffee mugs. Kennedy took it automatically, too surprised to argue. "Okay," she said. Thank you, Kennedy. Jared's dark eyes met hers. It was good, I had a good time. Me too, Kennedy admitted. Something passed between them, unspoken, fragile, new. Then Jared's phone rang, shattering the moment. He glanced at the screen and sighed. Have to take this. Meeting with investors. He headed toward his office, then paused at the doorway. Oh, and Kennedy, that white shirt you're always wearing, it's a good look. Don't let anyone tell you different. He was gone before Kennedy could respond. She stood in the kitchen, holding her coffee, her heart doing gymnastics in her chest. Don't let anyone tell you different. He'd heard her in the grocery store. Heard what Vanessa said, and he was telling her in his own way that Vanessa was wrong. Kennedy smiled into her coffee and got to work. The week that followed was different. Jared stopped making petty complaints, stopped testing her, started actually talking to her when they crossed paths in the house. Tuesday, he asked her opinion on a business proposal. Kennedy read through it during her lunch break and gave him honest feedback. He actually listened, actually implemented some of her suggestions. Wednesday, he asked about her brothers, wanted to know what they were studying, how they were adjusting to college life. Thursday, he came home early and found Kennedy studying at the kitchen island. Instead of telling her to work somewhere else, he grabbed his own laptop and worked across from her in comfortable silence. Friday, everything changed. Kennedy was dusting the living room when she heard raised voices from Jared's office. She knew she shouldn't eavesdrop, but the voices were getting louder. Believe you're still defending her. That was Jared's voice. Angry. Not defending her, I'm telling you to let it go. That was Uncle Reg. Kennedy crept closer, her heart pounding. She groomed me, Uncle Reg. She was my father's wife. She was supposed to be a parent figure. And instead Jared's voice cracked. She made me think it was my fault, that I wanted it. I was 15 years old. Kennedy's blood ran cold. I know, son, I know. Uncle Reg's voice was gentle now. But reporting her now, after all these years, it would destroy you more than it would hurt her. The media would tear you apart. Your company would suffer. She just gets away with it. Jared's voice was bitter. Vivienne Ashford gets to walk free while I live with this every single day. You're in therapy. You're doing the work. You're healing. That's what matters. Because I don't feel healed. I feel broken. I feel like every relationship I've tried to have has failed because I can't trust anyone. Can't let anyone close because what if Jared's voice broke off. Kennedy backed away from the door, her hands shaking, tears streaming down her face. 15 years old, groomed, abused, everything about Jared suddenly made horrible, perfect sense. The cold demeanor. The way he used women and discarded them before they could get close. The 37 housekeepers. The inability to trust. He wasn't a playboy, he was a survivor. Kennedy made it to the kitchen and sat down hard in one of the chairs, trying to process what she just heard. She wanted to storm into that office and tell Jared that he wasn't broken, that he was strong and brave and what happened to him wasn't his fault. But she couldn't, because she wasn't supposed to know. Kennedy wiped her eyes and got back to work, her heart aching for the man upstairs who'd been carrying this weight alone for so long. That evening, Kennedy was loading the dishwasher when Jared came into the kitchen. His eyes were red-rimmed, his face drawn. He looked like he'd been through a war. Hey, Kennedy said softly. Hey, Jared replied. His voice was rough. They stood there for a moment, the dishwasher humming between them. Do you believe in second chances? Jared asked suddenly. Kennedy looked up at him. What do you mean? I mean, if someone did terrible things because they were hurt, because they were broken, but they're trying to be better, do they deserve a second chance? Kennedy's throat tightened. I think everyone deserves a chance to heal, to grow, to become better than their worst moments. Jared's eyes searched her face. Even if they've hurt people, especially then, Kennedy said, as long as they're taking responsibility, as long as they're doing the work to change, if they can't forgive themselves. Kennedy set down the dish she was holding and walked over to him. She stood close enough to see the pain in his dark eyes. Then they find people who can see past their mistakes, she said quietly. People who can see the person they're becoming, not just the person they were. Jared's breath caught. Kennedy, you're a good person, Jared, Kennedy interrupted. I don't know what you're dealing with. I don't know what's hurting you, but I know that much. I've seen the way you treat people when you think no one's watching. The way you feed that stray dog every night. The way you asked about my brothers because you actually care. The way you gave me Sundays off even though you didn't have to. You know about the dog? Jared asked, surprised. See you from the kitchen window sometimes. You sit with him for almost an hour every night. That's not something a bad person does. Jared's eyes were shining. "I'm trying," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm trying so hard to be better than what was done to me." Kennedy understood. She understood exactly what he was saying without him having to say it. "I know," she said. "And you're doing it. You're already better." Jared looked at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. Then very slowly he reached up and touched her face, just his fingertips against her cheek. Gentle, questioning. Kennedy's heart stopped. She should step back, should maintain professional distance, should remember that he was her boss and she was his employee and this was crossing every line they shouldn't cross. But she didn't move. Jared's thumb brushed across her cheekbone, his dark eyes intense. "Beautiful," he said quietly. "I know I said you weren't my type. I was lying. You terrify me, Kennedy Taylor, because you see me, really see me, and that's more dangerous than anything I've ever faced." Kennedy's breath caught in her throat. Jared leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. His lips were an inch from hers when Kennedy's phone rang, shattering the moment. They sprang apart like they'd been electrocuted. Kennedy grabbed her phone with shaking hands. The screen showed Isaiah's name. I have to take this," she stammered. "Of course," Jared said, stepping back, his voice rough. Kennedy answered the phone. "Zay, what's wrong?" "Ken, it's Caleb." Isaiah's voice was tight with panic. "We're at the hospital. He has appendicitis. They're saying he needs surgery like right now, but we don't have insurance authorization yet and I'm on my way," Kennedy said, already grabbing her keys. "Which hospital?" "University of Washington Medical Center." "Ken, I'm scared." "Be there in 15 minutes. Stay with him. Don't let them do anything until I get there." Kennedy hung up and turned to Jared, who was already grabbing his own keys. "Let's go," he said. "You don't have to, Kennedy." His voice was firm. "Let's go. My car is faster." Kennedy didn't argue. They made it to the hospital in 12 minutes. Jared drove his Mercedes like he was competing in the Indy 500, weaving through traffic with practiced ease. He found parking while Kennedy ran inside. Isaiah was in the waiting room packing. When he saw Kennedy, he practically collapsed into her arms. "They took him back for tests," Isaiah said, his voice shaking. "He was in so much pain, Ken. I've never seen him like that." "It's going to be okay," Kennedy said, holding her brother tight even though she didn't know if that was true. "Where's the doctor?" "Right here." A woman in scrubs approached them. "Are you Kennedy Taylor?" "Yes, I'm Caleb's guardian. Your brother has acute appendicitis. We need to operate within the hour. The surgery is routine, but we need consent and payment authorization." "Much?" Kennedy asked. "With surgery, anesthesia, and overnight stay, we're looking at around $35,000. "You have insurance?" Kennedy's heart sank. "We have insurance, but I don't know if it covers emergency surgery. Our parents died and we had to switch plans and we'll cover it." Kennedy turned. Jared was standing behind her, his phone already out. "What?" she asked. "Whatever the insurance doesn't cover, I'll cover," Jared said. "Give me the billing office number. I'll call them right now." "Jared, no, I can't let you." "Kennedy." He stepped closer, his voice gentle but firm. "This isn't a debate. This is your brother. Let me help." Kennedy's eyes filled with tears. "I can't pay you back." "I'm not asking you to." "Jared." "Kennedy, please." His dark eyes pleaded with her. "Let me do this. Let me be useful for once instead of just broken." Kennedy understood what he was saying. This wasn't about money. This was about him needing to feel like he could do something good. Something that mattered. She nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Jared called the billing office and had the entire thing sorted in 10 minutes. Whatever magic rich people had, he used it. The doctor came back with forms. Kennedy signed everything with shaking hands. They wheeled Caleb away and Kennedy finally broke down. Isaiah held her on one side. Jared stood on the other, his hand on her shoulder, steady and strong. "He's going to be fine," Jared said quietly. "The doctor said it's routine. They do these surgeries all the time." "If something goes wrong," Kennedy whispered. "Then we'll deal with it," Jared said. "Together, you're not alone in this." Kennedy looked up at him. "Why are you being so nice to me?" Jared smiled sadly. "Because someone should have been nice to me when I needed it, and they weren't, so I'm trying to be what I needed back then." Kennedy's heart cracked open. Isaiah looked between them with an expression that said he was putting pieces together. The surgery took an hour and a half. Longest 90 minutes of Kennedy's life. She paced. She prayed. She drank terrible hospital coffee and tried not to imagine the worst-case scenarios her brain kept throwing at her. Jared sat next to Isaiah, talking quietly. Kennedy caught snippets of the conversation. "Studying mechanical engineering. Yeah, I want to design sustainable energy systems, help combat climate change." "That's impressive. Have you thought about internships? Can't really afford to do unpaid internships. I need to work summers to help with expenses. What if they were paid? Isaiah looked up sharply. Are you offering me a job? I'm saying Pierce Enterprises has an internship program, and we're always looking for smart, driven engineering students if you're interested. Kennedy's heart swelled. Isaiah's eyes got shiny behind his glasses. Yeah, I'd be interested. Finally, the doctor came out. Surgery went perfectly, she said, and Kennedy nearly collapsed with relief. Appendix was removed without complications. He's in recovery now. You can see him in about 20 minutes. Thank you, Kennedy breathed. Thank you so much. When the doctor left, Kennedy turned to Jard and did something she'd never done before. She hugged him, just walked up and wrapped her arms around his waist and held on tight. Jard froze for half a second. Then his arms came around her, holding her like she was precious, like she was something worth protecting. Thank you, Kennedy whispered into his chest. Thank you for being here, for helping, for everything. Always, Jard said quietly. I'll always be here. Zaya watched them with knowing eyes, but he didn't say anything. They went to see Caleb a little while later. He was groggy from anesthesia, talking nonsense about dragons and pizza. Ken, he mumbled when he saw her. I saw a dragon, he told me secrets. What secrets? Kennedy asked, trying not to laugh. Can't tell you, dragon secrets, top secret dragon business. Isaiah snorted. The anesthesia has him messed up. I'm not messed up. You're messed up. Everything's messed up except the dragon. Jared was grinning. What did the dragon look like? Purple, with green spots, very fashionable dragon. They stayed until visiting hours were over. Caleb fell asleep mid-sentence about the dragon opening a bakery. In the parking lot, Isaiah pulled Kennedy aside. So, he said carefully, you and your boss. Kennedy's face heated. It's not like that. He paid for Cal's surgery without blinking. He offered me a paid internship, and the way he looks at you. Isaiah shook his head. That's not boss and employee. That's something else. It's complicated, Kennedy said. Life's complicated doesn't mean it's not worth it. Isaiah squeezed her shoulder. I'm just saying he seems like a good guy, and you deserve a good guy. He's been through a lot, Kennedy said quietly. So have you, Isaiah pointed out. Maybe you two are exactly what each other needs. Kennedy didn't have an answer for that. Jard drove her home in comfortable silence. When they pulled up to her apartment, he turned to her. Kennedy, about earlier. In the kitchen. Before the phone call. We don't have to talk about it, Kennedy interrupted. I think we do. Kennedy took a breath. Jard, I work for you. There are lines we can't cross. I know, but what if I want to cross them anyway? Then you'd be making a mistake, Kennedy said, even though her heart was screaming at her to shut up. You're vulnerable right now. You just had a hard conversation with your uncle. I overheard some of it, and Jared went very still. You heard. I didn't mean to. I was in the living room, and the voices were loud, and I'm sorry. I should have walked away. You know about Vivienne? Kennedy nodded, tears pricking her eyes. I'm so sorry, Jard. What she did to you was evil. You were a child. It wasn't your fault. Jared's hands tightened on the steering wheel. I've been in therapy for 3 years, and I still can't fully believe that. Then let me believe it for you, Kennedy said, until you can believe it yourself. Jared looked at her, his dark eyes vulnerable in a way she'd never seen before. Why? He asked. Why do you care? Because you matter, Kennedy said simply. You matter, Jard, and someone should have told you that a long time ago. Jared reached over and took her hand, laced his fingers through hers. Falling for you, he said quietly. I know I shouldn't. I know it's complicated, but I can't seem to stop. Kennedy's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. I believe in boundaries, she said carefully. I believe intimacy is sacred, something that should wait for marriage. Jared blinked. You want to wait, I do, and I know that probably makes me sound old-fashioned or weird, or it makes you sound like the most amazing person I've ever met, Jard interrupted. Kennedy, I've spent years using people, treating relationships like transactions, and you're the first person who's ever made me want something real, something that lasts. What are you saying? Kennedy whispered. I'm saying I'll wait, Jard said. I'll wait as long as you need because you're worth waiting for. Kennedy felt tears slip down her cheeks. But I need you to know something, Jard continued. This isn't just me being vulnerable or confused or going through something. I've been feeling this for weeks. Since the spider incident, maybe even before that. You make me want to be better. You make me believe I can be better. You are better, Kennedy said. You're already so much better than you think you are. Jard lifted her hand and pressed a kiss to her knuckles. Soft. Reverent, can I kiss you? He asked. Just once on the forehead like you did for me. Kennedy nodded, not trusting her voice. Jard leaned across the center console and pressed his lips to her forehead, gentle, tender, full of promise. When he pulled back, his eyes were shining. "Good night, Kennedy," he said softly. "Good night, Jard." Kennedy got out of the car and walked to her apartment on shaky legs. She stood in her doorway and watched Jard's Mercedes pull away, her heart full and terrified and hopeful all at once. Zaya was right, this was definitely something else. The next morning, Monday, Kennedy arrived at the mansion to find a note on the kitchen counter in Jard's neat handwriting. "Kennedy, I have meetings all day. There's fresh coffee in the pot. Take the day off if you need it. Your brother is more important than housework. Also, I meant what I said last night. Every word." J. Kennedy folded the note and tucked it into her messenger bag, a smile spreading across her face. She got to work, but her mind was elsewhere, on a man who was learning to heal, on a future that suddenly looked brighter than it had in years, on the terrifying, wonderful possibility that maybe, just maybe, she deserved something good. Around noon, Kennedy's phone buzzed with a text. "Jard, how's Caleb? Kennedy, good. Discharged this morning. Isaiah's staying with him at the dorm. Jard, good. And how are you? Kennedy, I'm okay. Thank you for last night, for everything. Jard, always. Dinner tomorrow. I'll cook. Kennedy, you cook. Jared, badly. But I'm willing to try if it means spending time with you." Kennedy laughed out loud in the empty mansion. "Kennedy, okay, but I'm supervising. I can't let you burn down your own kitchen. Jard, deal. See you tomorrow." Kennedy set down her phone, her heart lighter than it had been in months. Things were changing. And for the first time since her parents died, Kennedy let herself believe that change might actually be a good thing. "All right, y'all, we need to talk." Jard just confessed his feelings. Kennedy told him she wants to wait for marriage, and instead of running away, he said he'll wait. Do you know how rare that is? A man who's willing to respect boundaries and do things right. If you're rooting for these two, drop a "worth the wait" in the comments. Let's continue the story. 3 weeks had passed since the hospital. 3 weeks of Kennedy and Jard dancing around each other like two people learning a new language. 3 weeks of Sunday football games where they argued about plays and ate pizza and laughed until their stomachs hurt. 3 weeks of late-night conversations in the kitchen, where Jard would find Kennedy studying and sit across from her, working on his own laptop in comfortable silence. 3 weeks of stolen glances and accidental touches and a tension that hummed between them like a live wire. 3 weeks of Jard proving, day after day, that he meant what he said. He hadn't tried to kiss her, hadn't pushed for more than what she was willing to give, respected her boundaries so completely that sometimes Kennedy wondered if she'd imagined that conversation in his car. But then he'd look at her, really look at her, and she'd see it. The want, the restraint, the choice he was making every single day to wait for her. It was intoxicating and terrifying all at once. Kennedy was falling for him, hard. The kind of falling that felt like jumping off a cliff and hoping someone would catch you. And the scariest part, she thought he might actually catch her. It was a Thursday afternoon, and Kennedy had finished her work early. Jard was supposed to be at the office all day, so Kennedy decided to head home and surprise the twins with lunch. She grabbed her messenger bag and headed for the front door. That's when she heard it, a woman's voice, coming from upstairs. "Jared, honey, where are the towels? I need to shower." Kennedy froze, her hand on the doorknob. Her brain tried to process what she'd just heard. A woman in Jard's house, asking about towels, needing to shower. No, 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 no. Kennedy's feet moved before her brain caught up. She walked up the grand staircase like she was in a dream or a nightmare. She couldn't tell which. The master bedroom door was open. Kennedy stood in the doorway and felt her entire world shatter. A woman was in Jard's bedroom. A gorgeous woman with perfect curves and long braids cascading down her back. She was wearing Jard's white dress shirt, the expensive one Kennedy had pressed and hung in his closet just yesterday morning. The shirt hung off one shoulder. The woman's long legs were bare. She was sitting on Jard's bed, scrolling through her phone like she belonged there, like she'd been there before. The woman looked up and saw Kennedy. Her face lit up with a warm smile. "Oh, you must be Kennedy," she said brightly. "Jard talks about you all the time. I'm Morgan." Kennedy couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process. She'd been such a fool, all of it. The football games, the late-night talks, the promises to wait, all of it had been lies. Pretty lies wrapped up in expensive cologne and that devastating smile, but lies all the same. Men like Jard Pierce didn't fall for women like Kennedy Taylor. They just didn't. Kennedy turned and ran down the stairs, through the foyer, Out the front door, behind her, she heard Morgan's confused voice. "Wait, did I say something wrong?" Kennedy didn't stop, didn't look back, didn't let herself think about anything except getting to her car and getting away from this place. Her hands shook so badly she could barely get her keys out of her bag. When she finally did, she dropped them, picked them up, dropped them again. His voice. He was running toward her from the driveway, still in his suit from work, his face panicked. "Kennedy, wait, I can explain." "Don't," Kennedy said, finally getting her car door open. "Just don't. That's Morgan, my cousin, Uncle Reg's daughter. Her hotel had a gas leak and she called me and—" "I don't care," Kennedy interrupted, even though her voice was breaking. "I don't care who she is. Kennedy, please, just look at me." Kennedy couldn't. If she looked at him, she'd cry. And she would not give him the satisfaction of seeing her cry. "I was wrong," she said, staring at her steering wheel. "I thought you were different. I thought maybe you actually cared. But I was wrong, and that's on me. I should have known better. Kennedy, I swear on everything I have, Morgan is my cousin. Let me prove it. Let me show you family photos, call my uncle, anything." "I can't do this," Kennedy whispered. "I can't be here right now." She got in her car, slammed the door, and drove away. In her rearview mirror, she saw Jared standing in the driveway, his hand outstretched like he could pull her back through sheer force of will. Kennedy made it 3 blocks before the tears came. She pulled over in a random parking lot and let herself fall apart. She'd been so stupid. So incredibly, unbelievably stupid. She'd let herself believe. Let herself hope. Let herself think that maybe, just maybe, she could have something good. But girls like her didn't get happy endings with guys like him. That only happened in movies. Kennedy cried until she had no tears left. Then she drove home to her tiny apartment and collapsed on her couch. Her phone started ringing immediately. Jared's name lit up the screen over and over. She didn't answer. Text messages started flooding in. "Jared, please answer. Please let me explain. Jared, Morgan is my cousin. I can prove it. Just give me a chance. Jared, Kennedy, I would never do that to you. You have to know that. Jared, I'm coming over. We need to talk." Kennedy turned off her phone and buried her face in a pillow. She didn't know how long she lay there. Time felt meaningless. The knock on her door came 20 minutes later. Kennedy ignored it. "Open the door. We know you're in there." That wasn't Jared's voice. That was Isaiah. Kennedy dragged herself off the couch and opened the door. Her twin brothers stood there, concern written all over their faces. Behind them, looking nervous and out of place, was Jared. "What is this?" Kennedy asked, her voice hoarse from crying. "An intervention," Caleb said, pushing past her into the apartment. He'd recovered well from his surgery, though he still moved a little carefully. "Because apparently you ran out of Jared's house crying and now you won't answer anyone's calls." "How did you even know?" "He called us," Isaiah said, gesturing to Jared. "Said there was a misunderstanding and you wouldn't let him explain." Kennedy glared at Jared. "You called my brothers." "I called everyone I could think of," Jared said. His voice was rough, desperate. "Your brothers, Diego, Uncle Reg, even your friend Alina, anyone who might get you to listen." "Don't want to listen," Kennedy said. "Too bad," Caleb said, "because we're making you listen." "Jared, you have 5 minutes. Explain." Jared stepped into the apartment and Kennedy hated how her heart still jumped at the sight of him. "Morgan Pierce is my cousin," Jared said. "Uncle Reg's oldest daughter. She's 29. She works in fashion in New York. She's been coming to our family gatherings since we were kids." He pulled out his phone and started showing Kennedy pictures, family photos. Morgan and Jared as teenagers at what looked like a Christmas party. Morgan and Jared at Uncle Reg's birthday celebration. Morgan, Jared, and Uncle Reg at a company retreat. "Hotel called her this morning saying there was a gas leak," Jared continued. "She needed a place to shower and change before her meeting downtown. I was at the office. I told her to use the spare key and help herself to whatever she needed." He showed Kennedy his text conversation with Morgan from that morning. "Morgan, gas leak at the hotel. Can I use your shower, Jared?" "Sure. Spare key is in the usual spot. Help yourself, Morgan. You're a lifesaver. See you at dinner tonight, Jared. Can't. Have plans, Morgan. Plans with a certain housekeeper. Jared, mind your business, Morgan. That's a yes. Can't wait to meet her." Kennedy stared at the messages, her stomach twisting. "She was wearing your shirt," Kennedy said weakly. "Because she spilled coffee on hers in the Uber," Jared said. "She's been borrowing my clothes since we were kids. It's a family thing. A weird family thing, but a family thing." He pulled up Morgan's Instagram and handed Kennedy the phone. The profile was public. Photos of Morgan at fashion shows with friends with family. Lots of photos with Jared, all of them clearly cousins. No romantic undertones at all. Kennedy felt her certainty crumbling. I can call Uncle Reg right now, Jard said. Or Morgan, or my mom. Anyone who can verify what I'm saying. He's telling the truth, Ken, Isaiah said quietly. We already called Mr. Reginald on the way over here. He confirmed everything. You called Reg? Kennedy asked. We wanted to make sure before we got involved, Caleb said. And yeah, Morgan is definitely his daughter. He was actually confused about why we were asking. Kennedy sat down hard on her couch, her head spinning. I thought. She started, then stopped. I saw her in your room wearing your shirt and I just assumed. I know what you assumed, Jard said, kneeling in front of her. And I understand why. My track record isn't exactly stellar. But Kennedy, I swear on my father's grave, I haven't been with anyone since I met you. Haven't wanted to be with anyone. You're it for me. Kennedy's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. I should have let you explain. I should have trusted you. No, Jard said firmly. You shouldn't have, not automatically. Trust is earned and I'm still earning yours, but I need you to know that I'm not that person anymore. The person who went through 37 housekeepers, that's not who I want to be. You make me want to be better. You are better, Kennedy whispered. You're so much better and I was stupid to run without giving you a chance to explain. You weren't stupid. You were protecting yourself. And that's smart, not stupid. Kennedy looked at her brothers who were watching this whole scene with varying degrees of amusement and concern. You two give us a minute, she asked. Nope, Caleb said, flopping onto her couch and grabbing the TV remote. We're staying right here, moral support. Making sure he doesn't try anything, Isaiah added, though his slight smile said he knew Jard wouldn't. Kennedy shook her head, but she was smiling. You two are the worst. You love us, Caleb said cheerfully. Kennedy turned back to Jard, who was still kneeling in front of her. Sorry, she said again. I should have trusted you. I'm sorry for not thinking about how it would look, Jard said. I should have texted you that Morgan was coming over. I should have communicated better. Both messed up, Kennedy said. Yeah, Jard agreed. But we're talking about it now. That's what matters. They looked at each other for a long moment. Something settled between them, something stronger than before. So, Jard said, a small smile playing at his lips. Are we okay? We're okay, Kennedy said, relief washed over Jard's face. He started to stand up, but Kennedy stopped him. Wait, she said. You're already down there. Kennedy took a deep breath. What are we doing, Jard? Because this feels like more than boss and employee, more than friendship, and I need to know what we're calling this. Jared's smile grew. What do you want to call it? I asked first. Jard reached out and took her hands in his. Kennedy Michelle Taylor, I would very much like to be dadding you, officially, with all the labels and commitment and expectations that come with it. Kennedy's heart soared. Even though I want to wait, even though I have boundaries you're probably not used to, especially because of that, Jard said. You know what you want, you know your worth. You don't compromise on your values. That's not a problem, Kennedy. That's everything I've been looking for. From the couch, Caleb made a gagging noise. This is so cheesy, I love it. Up Cal, Isaiah said, but he was smiling too. Kennedy ignored her brothers. Okay, Jard repeated. Okay, let's do this. Let's try the whole official dadding thing. Jared's grin was blinding. Yeah. He stood up, pulling Kennedy to her feet and wrapped her in a hug that felt like coming home. Kennedy buried her face in his chest and let herself believe just for a moment that maybe this could actually work. One rule though, she said, her voice muffled against his shirt. Anything. You have to tell me when female relatives are going to be in your house wearing your clothes. That's just basic communication. Jared laughed. Deal. Although in my defense, this is the first time in 3 years Morgan's needed to use my shower. It's not a regular occurrence. Still, communication. Communication, Jard agreed. I can do that. Good. They stood there for a moment, just holding each other. Then Caleb's voice cut through the moment. So does this mean we get to do the protective brother speech now? Because I've been preparing one. Kennedy pulled back from Jard, laughing. Please don't. Late. Caleb stood up, crossing his arms in what was probably supposed to be an intimidating pose but just made him look like an annoyed teenager. Jard Pierce, you seem like a decent guy. You paid for my surgery, which earned you major points. But if you hurt our sister, we know where you live, Isaiah interrupted, and we both have very particular sets of skills. You just quote taken, Kennedy asked. Yes, and it's valid. Isaiah turned to Jard. Ken raised us. She sacrificed everything for us. So if you're here playing games, taking up her time and energy for nothing, we're going to have a problem. Jared's expression turned serious. I'm not playing games. I'm in this for real. And I promise I'll treat your sister with the respect and care she deserves. Answer, Caleb said. You may pass. Oh, I may pass. Thank you for your permission, Jard said dryly, but he was smiling. Kennedy shook her head at her brothers. You two are ridiculous. We're protective, Isaiah corrected. There's a difference. Barely. Kennedy's phone, which she turned back on at some point during the chaos, buzzed with a text. It was from Alina Rodriguez, her best friend. Alina, girl, your man just called me asking for advice on how to get you to talk to him. That's dedication. Please tell me you let him explain. Kennedy smiled and typed back, Kennedy, I let him explain. We're good now, Alina, finally. I want details, all of them. Coffee tomorrow, Kennedy. Yes, I'll call you later. Kennedy looked up to find 3 pairs of eyes watching her. She asked. Nothing, Jard said, but his smile said everything. I'm just happy. Me too, Kennedy admitted. Caleb made another gagging noise. Okay, this is getting too sweet for me. Zay, let's go. I think they want alone time. We're not leaving them alone, Isaiah said. Ken has boundaries, remember. We're not going to do anything, Kennedy said, exasperated. We literally just started officially dating like 5 minutes ago. Still, Isaiah said. We're staying for at least another hour, chaperone rules, Jared laughed. I respect that. Actually, I appreciate it. Shows they care about you. They're annoying, Kennedy said. We're thorough, Caleb corrected. The next hour passed in easy conversation. The twins grilled Jard about everything from his business to his intentions to his favorite pizza toppings. Jard answered every question with patience and humor. Kennedy watched him interact with her brothers and felt her heart swell. This was real. This was actually happening. When Isaiah and Caleb finally left, after making Jard promise to have Kennedy home by a reasonable hour, even though she was 24 years old and lived on her own, Kennedy walked Jard to his car. The Seattle evening was cool and gray, threatening rain like it always did. Thank you, Kennedy said, for not giving up, for calling my brothers, for proving I was wrong. You weren't wrong to be cautious, Jard said. You were smart, and I'm going to spend every day proving that you can trust me. I already trust you, Kennedy said. I wouldn't have agreed to date you if I didn't. Jared smiled and reached up to cup her face. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. Can I kiss you? He asked softly. For real this time, not just your forehead. Kennedy's heart raced. Yes. Jard leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to change her mind. She didn't. His lips touched hers, soft and gentle and perfect. The kiss was everything Kennedy had imagined and nothing like she'd expected. It wasn't demanding or possessive. It was a question and an answer all at once. A promise wrapped in gentleness. When they pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. Kennedy whispered. Yeah, Jard agreed. Wow. They stood there in the parking lot of Kennedy's apartment building, foreheads touching, smiling like idiots. I should go, Jard said reluctantly. Before your brothers come back and tackle me, Kennedy laughed. They probably would. Text me when you get inside. Literally 20 feet from my door. I don't care, text me. Kennedy shook her head, but she was smiling. Okay, I'll text you. She watched Jard drive away, then floated back to her apartment. She texted him like he'd asked, Kennedy, I'm inside. Safe and sound, Jard, good, sleep well. Dream of me, Kennedy, conceded much, Jared, confident. There's a difference, Kennedy, good night, Jard, good night, Kennedy. Thank you for giving me a second chance. Kennedy fell asleep with her phone in her hand and a smile on her face. The next 2 months were the best of Kennedy's life. She and Jard fell into a rhythm, a pattern that felt natural and right. They still watched football together every Sunday. Still argued about plays and ate too much pizza and laughed until their stomachs hurt. But now there were other things too. Date nights at restaurants where Jard let Kennedy order whatever she wanted without making her feel guilty about the price. Long walks around Green Lake on her days off, talking about everything and nothing. Study sessions where Jard would quiz her on business management concepts and actually seemed interested in her answers. Jard attended Caleb's computer science presentation at UW and asked questions that showed he'd actually been paying attention. He took Isaiah to lunch and talked about the engineering internship he'd promised, making sure it was a real opportunity and not just charity. He met Alina for coffee and charmed her so completely that she texted Kennedy afterward. Girl, if you don't marry him, I will. He was integrating into her life and she was integrating into his. Kennedy met Diego Martinez properly, Jard's best friend and CFO. Diego was warm and funny and happily married to his wife Sophia, who immediately adopted Kennedy as a friend. He's different with you, Diego told Kennedy one day when they were all having dinner together. "I've known Jard since college and I've never seen him like this. Relaxed, happy himself." "He's a good man," Kennedy said. "He's becoming a good man," Diego corrected gently. "And that's because of you." Kennedy met Jard's mother, Mrs. Pierce, an elegant woman in her late 50s who looked at Kennedy with warm eyes and said, "Thank you for being patient with my son. He's been through so much." "He's worth the patience," Kennedy replied. Mrs. Pierce smiled. "I think you might be exactly what he needs." And slowly, carefully, Jard told Kennedy more about his past, about Vivienne and what she'd done to him when he was just a boy. About the years of therapy to unlearn the damage, about the women he'd used because he was afraid of being used first, about the moment he realized he had to change or lose himself completely. Kennedy listened without judgment, held his hand when the memories got too heavy, reminded him that his past didn't define his future. "Healing," she told him one night when they were sitting on his back porch, watching the lights reflect off Lake Washington. "And healing isn't linear. You're going to have bad days. But I'll be here for them." Jared kissed her forehead. "How did I get so lucky?" "You didn't get lucky. You did the work. This is what you earned." But there was one thing they hadn't talked about, the bet. Kennedy still didn't know about Uncle Reg's 6-month test. Didn't know that Jard had been under pressure to prove he could respect a woman without sleeping with her. And Jard didn't know how to tell her without making it sound like their entire relationship had started as some kind of challenge. It weighed on him, kept him up at night, Diego noticed. "You need to tell her," Diego said during one of their weekly check-ins at the office. "The longer you wait, the worse it's going to be when she finds out." "I know," Jard said, running a hand over his face. "But how do I explain that my uncle bet me $80,000 that I couldn't keep my hands off her for 6 months? How do I make that not sound terrible?" "By being honest," Diego said. "Tell her the truth. That your uncle was trying to teach you accountability. That the bet was about respect, not sex. That you fell for her despite the bet, not because of it. What if she doesn't believe me? Then you remind her of the last 3 months, of every choice you've made, of every boundary you've respected. Your actions speak louder than some bet your uncle made." Jared knew Diego was right. He just had to find the courage to tell her. But before he could, everything fell apart. It was a Saturday afternoon. Kennedy had come to the mansion early because Jard had asked her to attend a charity gala with him that evening. As his official girlfriend, not as staff, Kennedy had actually bought a new dress for the occasion. Nothing expensive. She'd found it at a thrift store and had it tailored. But it was beautiful. Simple black, knee-length, elegant. Alina had helped her pick it out and had insisted on doing her makeup. "Going to a fancy event with your billionaire boyfriend," Alina had said. "Let me work my magic." Kennedy had laughed but agreed. She'd arrived at the mansion around 2, planning to get ready there since the gala didn't start until 7. Jard was in his office on a conference call, so Kennedy went to the kitchen to make herself some tea. That's when she heard voices in the living room, Uncle Reg and Jard, and they were talking about her. "Believe it's almost been 6 months, Reg was saying. "I know," Jard replied. "You actually did it. You kept your hands off her." Kennedy froze, her hand on the kettle. "It wasn't about keeping my hands off her," Jard said, and he sounded annoyed. "It stopped being about the bet months ago." "The bet? What bet?" Kennedy crept closer to the living room, her heart pounding. "Still," Reg continued, "you won fair and square, proved you could treat a woman with respect for 6 months without sleeping with her. I'll admit I didn't think you had it in you." "Thanks for the vote of confidence," Jard said dryly. "Serious, Jard. I'm proud of you, and I can tell this thing with Kennedy is real. The way you look at her, talk about her, that's not an act." "It's not an act," Jard confirmed. "I love her, Uncle Reg. I'm going to ask her to marry me." Kennedy's breath caught. "That's a big step," Reg said carefully. "I know, but she's it for me. I've never been more sure of anything in my life." "What about the physical aspect? You two haven't." "No, and we won't until we're married. That's her boundary, and I respect it." "Men wouldn't." "Not most men, not anymore." Jard paused. "She changed me, Uncle Reg, made me want to be better, made me believe I could be better." There was a long silence, then Reg spoke, his voice thick with emotion. "Your father would be so proud of the man you've become." "I hope so." Kennedy backed away from the doorway, her mind racing. A bet. Uncle Reg had bet Jard that he couldn't keep his hands off her for 6 months. 6 months. She did the math quickly. She'd been working here for almost exactly 6 months. The 6-month mark would be next week, so everything, the football games, the late-night talks, the respect for her boundaries, all of it had been part of a bet, No, that couldn't be right. Jared had just said he loved her, said he wanted to marry her, said it wasn't about the bet anymore. But had it been about the bet in the beginning, had she been some kind of test, some challenge he had to overcome, Kennedy felt sick. She grabbed her messenger bag and headed for the door, moving quietly so they wouldn't hear her. She made it to her car and sat there, shaking. Her phone buzzed. Jared. Hey, where are you? I'm done with my call. Want to grab lunch before we start getting ready for tonight? Kennedy stared at the message. She should go back inside, should confront him, should ask him to explain. But she couldn't, not yet. She needed to think, needed to process, needed to figure out if everything she thought was real had actually been a lie. Kennedy started her car and drove to the one place she always went when she needed to think. The cemetery where her parents were buried. Cary Park sat on the south slope of Queen Anne Hill, offering one of the most iconic views of Seattle. The Space Needle rose against the skyline. Elliott Bay sparkled in the distance, and on clear days you could see Mount Rainier. Today wasn't a clear day. The sky was gray, threatening rain. Kennedy sat on a bench, her phone in her hand, staring at Jared's increasingly worried messages. Jared. Kennedy. Where did you go, Jared? Are you okay? Please answer. Jared, I'm getting worried. Did something happen, Jared? Kennedy, please, just let me know you're safe. She should answer, should tell him she was fine, but she wasn't fine. Her phone rang. Alina's name lit up the screen. Kennedy answered. Hey yourself. Why does your boyfriend sound like he's having a panic attack? He just called me asking if I knew where you were. I left, Kennedy said. I can hear that. Why? I overheard something about a bet. There was a pause. What kind of bet? Kennedy explained what she'd heard. The 6-month timeline, Uncle Reg's test. The challenge to prove Jared could respect a woman without sleeping with her. When she finished, Alina was quiet for a long moment. "Okay," Alina said finally. "I'm going to say something you're not going to want to hear. Ahead, you're spiraling. You heard part of a conversation, jumped to conclusions, and ran away instead of talking to him about it. Alina, I'm not done. Did you hear the part where he said he loves you, where he said he wants to marry you, where he said it stopped being about the bet months ago?" "I heard it," Kennedy said quietly. "Then why are you sitting in? Where are you? Cary Park. Are you sitting in Cary Park instead of talking to your boyfriend who is currently losing his mind with worry? Because I need to think." "About what?" "About whether a man who has spent 3 months respecting your boundaries, integrating into your life, loving your brothers, and being the most supportive partner you've ever had actually cares about you. Girl, you know the answer." "It started as a bet," Kennedy said, her voice breaking. "What if none of it was real?" "Then explain the last 3 months," Alina challenged. "Explain him paying for Caleb's surgery. Explain him offering Isaiah an internship. Explain him meeting me for coffee to ask what your favorite flowers are because he wanted to surprise you. Explain all of that being fake." Kennedy couldn't. "Scared," Alina said gently. "You're scared because things are going well and you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. But babe, sometimes the shoe doesn't drop. Sometimes you just get to be happy. What if I'm wrong about him? What if you're right?" Alina countered. "What if he's exactly who he says he is? A man who's done the work to change, who loves you, who wants to build a life with you? Are you really going to throw that away because his uncle made a bet 6 months ago?" Kennedy closed her eyes. "No. Then go talk to him. Let him explain. Give him the same second chance you gave him after the Morgan thing. You're right. I know I'm right. I'm always right. Now go get your man before he sends out a search party." Kennedy smiled despite herself. "Thank you, Alina. That's what best friends are for. Now go, and call me later with details." Kennedy hung up and looked at her phone. Jared had sent 12 more messages and called 4 times. She typed out a response. "Kennedy, I'm okay. I'm at Cary Park. Can you meet me here?" The response was immediate. "Jared, on my way. Don't move." Kennedy sat on that bench and waited, her heart in her throat. 15 minutes later, Jared's Mercedes pulled into the parking lot. He got out and walked toward her, his face a mixture of relief and worry. "Okay," he said, like he needed to confirm it with his own eyes. "I'm okay," Kennedy confirmed. Jared sat down next to her on the bench, close but not touching. "What happened?" he asked. "Did I do something wrong?" "I overheard you and Uncle Reg talking," Kennedy said. "About the bet." Jared went very still. "Kennedy, let me finish," Kennedy interrupted. "I heard about the 6-month test. About Uncle Reg betting that you couldn't respect a woman without sleeping with her. And I panicked. I thought maybe everything between us was just part of some challenge. It's not, Jared said urgently. Kennedy, I swear. I know, Kennedy said. I know it's not because I also heard you say you love me, that you want to marry me, that it stopped being about the bet months ago. Jared let out a breath. You heard that part too. Yeah. I was going to tell you, Jared said. About the bet. I've been trying to find the right time, but I didn't know how to make it not sound terrible. It does sound kind of terrible, Kennedy admitted. I know, but here's the truth. Jared turned to face her fully. Uncle Reg made that bet because he was desperate. I'd gone through 37 housekeepers in 4 years, seduced them, slept with them, discarded them. He was tired of cleaning up my messes. So he hired you, someone he knew wasn't my usual type, and bet that I couldn't make it 6 months without either sleeping with you or driving you away. If you lost, he'd pull out of Pierce Enterprises, which would have been catastrophic for the business. Kennedy processed this. So there was real pressure. Yeah, at first. But Kennedy, somewhere around the spider incident, maybe even before that, it stopped being about the bet. It started being about you. About how you made me laugh. About how you challenged me. About how you saw the broken parts of me and didn't run. I'm running now, Kennedy pointed out. You came back, Jared said. That's what matters. They sat in silence for a moment, looking out at the Seattle skyline. Love you, Jared said quietly. I know it's fast. I know we've only been officially dating for 2 months, but I've been falling for you since the day you dumped ice water on that drunk guy at the restaurant. Since the day you handled my petty complaints without flinching. Since the day you saved me from a tiny spider at 2 in the morning. Kennedy laughed despite herself. Love you, Jared repeated. And not because of any bet. Not because you're a challenge I needed to overcome, but because you're you. Because you're strong and stubborn and brilliant and kind. Because you make me want to be better. Because when I think about my future, you're in every single version of it. Kennedy's eyes filled with tears. I love you too. Jared's face lit up like she'd just given him the world. Yeah, I love you, Jared Pierce. Even though you're a reformed playboy with a spider phobia and a habit of making bets you probably shouldn't make. Hey, I didn't make the bet. That was all Uncle Reg. You still participated. Fair point. Jared reached for her hand. So are we okay? We're okay, Kennedy said. But you owe me honesty from now on. No more secrets, no more waiting for the right time to tell me important things. Deal, no more secrets. They sat there holding hands, watching the clouds roll over the Seattle skyline. You said you wanted to marry me, Kennedy said after a while. I do. That's really fast, Jared. I know, and I'm not proposing today or tomorrow. I'm just telling you my intentions, so you know where this is heading. If you wanted to head there. I wanted to head there, Kennedy admitted. Eventually, when we're both ready. How will we know when we're ready? Jared asked. Kennedy thought about it. When you've been in therapy long enough to really heal, when I finish my degree, when we've had enough time to know this isn't just infatuation. More months, Jared suggested. A full year from when we met, Kennedy smiled. That feels right. Okay, so in 6 months I'm going to ask you to marry me, and you're going to say. I'm going to say ask me in 6 months and find out, Jared laughed. You're impossible, you love it. I really do. Jared leaned in and kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Kennedy rested her head on his shoulder. We should probably go back, she said. We have a gala tonight. About that, Jared said. I should warn you, Vivienne might be there. Kennedy lifted her head. Your stepmother, ex-stepmother. It's a charity event she's involved with. I didn't know until this morning, or I would have told you. Do you want to skip it? Kennedy asked. No, I want to go, with you. Show her that I'm not that scared kid anymore, that I have someone in my life who actually values me. Then let's go, Kennedy said firmly. Together, Jared smiled. Together. Gala was held at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel in downtown Seattle. The ballroom was all chandeliers and champagne, designer dresses, and expensive suits. Kennedy felt out of place the moment they walked in, even in her thrift store dress and Alina's careful makeup. But Jared held her hand like she was the most important person in the room. He introduced her to everyone as my girlfriend, Kennedy. Not my housekeeper. Not the staff. His girlfriend, Diego, and Sophia were there, and Sophia immediately pulled Kennedy aside. You look beautiful, Sophia said. That dress is perfect. Thanks, I'm terrified. Of what? Everyone, everything. This whole world. Kennedy gestured at the ballroom. I don't belong here. Jared thinks you do, Sophia said. And honestly, that's all that matters. They made it through cocktail hour and dinner without incident. Kennedy was starting to relax. Then Vivienne Ashford walked up to their table. She was everything Kennedy had imagined and worse. Tall, elegant, beautiful in a cold, calculated way. She wore a blood-red dress that probably cost more than Kennedy's car. "Red darling," Vivienne said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "It's been too long." Jared's entire body went rigid. "Vivienne, aren't you going to introduce me to your companion?" The way she said companion made it sound dirty. Kennedy stood up, drawing on every ounce of courage she had. "Kennedy Taylor," she said, extending her hand. "Jared's girlfriend." Vivienne's eyes traveled over Kennedy with obvious disdain. "How quaint. You're not his usual type, are you?" "No," Kennedy said evenly. "I'm better." Something flashed in Vivienne's eyes. Anger, maybe, or recognition that she'd been challenged. "Well, I do hope you last longer than the others," Vivienne said. "Jared does have a habit of getting bored with his toys." "I'm not a toy," Kennedy said, her voice steel. "And Jared's not the person you think he is, not anymore." "And what person is that?" "The scared boy you manipulated," Kennedy said quietly. Jared's hand found hers under the table, squeezing tight. "But he's not that boy anymore. He's a man who's done the work to heal, and you don't get to take credit for who he's become." Vivienne's smile turned vicious. "Did he tell you what happened between us? How you groomed him when he was 15, Kennedy interrupted. "How you abused your position as his stepmother. How you made him think it was his fault." "Yes, he told me. And it just makes me more certain that he's stronger than you ever gave him credit for." Vivienne went very still. Around them, other guests were starting to notice the confrontation. "You have no idea what you're talking about," Vivienne hissed. "Know exactly what I'm talking about," Kennedy said. "And I know that you spent years making Jared believe he was broken, but he's not. He's healing, and you have no power over him anymore." Jared stood up, his arm going around Kennedy's waist. "She's right," he said, his voice strong. "You don't have power over me anymore, Vivienne. I've spent years in therapy dealing with what you did, and I'm done letting it control my life." "Jared, no," Jared's voice was firm. "You don't get to talk to me, you don't get to approach me. And if you ever come near me or Kennedy again, I will report you. I don't care if it was years ago, I don't care if people don't believe me, I will tell everyone what you did." Vivienne's face paled. Without another word, she turned and walked away. The entire table was silent. Then Diego started clapping. Slowly at first, then faster. Sophia joined in. Then other people at nearby tables who'd witnessed the exchange. Jared looked down at Kennedy, eyes shining. "Thank you." "What?" "For standing up for me, for believing in me, for being the person I needed." Kennedy reached up and cupped his face. "Always." They left the gala early, not caring what anyone thought. In the car on the way back to Kennedy's apartment, Jared was quiet. "You okay?" Kennedy asked. "Just told Vivienne I'd report her," Jared said. "I've never done that before, never even threatened it." "Do you want to actually report her?" Kennedy asked gently. Jared thought about it. "I don't know, maybe. I need to talk to my therapist." But Kennedy, just being able to threaten it, to take that power back, that felt good. "Good," Kennedy said. "You deserve to take your power back." Jared pulled up to Kennedy's apartment and turned off the car. "I need to ask you something," he said. "Okay, that thing I said at Cary Park, about proposing in 6 months, was I crazy? Is that too soon?" Kennedy smiled. "Maybe a little crazy, but I like it." "Ask me in 6 months, Jared Pierce. Let's see where we are," Jared grinned. "I'm going to ask you in 6 months, and you're going to say yes." "Confident much? When it comes to you, absolutely." Kennedy leaned across the center console and kissed him. "Good night, Jared." "Night, Kennedy." She watched him drive away, her heart full and hopeful and terrified and excited all at once. 6 months. In 6 months, her entire life might change. And for the first time in years, Kennedy let herself believe that change would be a good thing. 6 months passed in what felt like both an eternity and a heartbeat. Kennedy finished her online degree in business management, graduated with honors. Jared, her brothers, Elena, Diego, Sophia, Uncle Reg, and Mrs. Pierce all attended the small ceremony. Kennedy cried when they called her name. Jared started a non-profit organization for male survivors of sexual abuse, put his story out there publicly, used his platform and his money to make a difference. It was terrifying and healing and exactly what he needed. Kennedy started planning for her security consulting business, saved every penny she could, drew up business plans, found a potential space to lease. And then Jared did something that took her breath away. He offered to invest in her business, not as charity, as an actual business investment. Kennedy would own 70%, he'd own 30%. She'd run everything, he'd provide capital and occasional business advice. "I believe in you," he said when he presented her with the proposal. "I believe in your vision, and I want to be part of making it happen," Kennedy cried. Then she signed the papers. Taylor Security Consultants opened its doors 3 months after that. The business was small at first, but it grew. Women came for self-defense classes. Companies hired her for corporate security training. Kennedy was building something. Something that was hers. Isaiah did his internship at Pierce Enterprises and was offered a full-time position after graduation. He accepted. Caleb graduated with his degree in computer science and got a job at a gaming company in Seattle. He moved into his own apartment with roommates from school. Kennedy's little brothers were grown. Independent, thriving, she'd done it. She'd raised them, kept them together, gotten them through college. Her parents would have been proud, and through it all, Jard was there. Supporting her, loving her, respecting her boundaries even when it was hard. They went to couples counseling together because Jard wanted to make sure they built their relationship on a healthy foundation. They talked about everything, the hard stuff and the easy stuff. They fought sometimes about money, about time, about his tendency to fix things instead of just listening, but they always worked through it. They learned each other, inside and out. And Kennedy fell more in love with him every single day. The proposal happened on a Sunday. Football season had started again, and Kennedy was at the mansion for their weekly game-watching tradition. Except Jard wasn't watching the game. He was watching her. Kennedy asked during halftime. "Nothing," Jard said, smiling. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About how a year ago I was a mess, and now I have you." "You have me," Kennedy confirmed. "And I want to keep having you for the rest of my life." Kennedy's heart started racing. "Jared," he got down on one knee, pulling out a small velvet box. "Kennedy Michelle Taylor," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "A year ago, my uncle brought you into my life thinking you'd teach me accountability. What I didn't know was that you'd teach me so much more. You taught me that I'm worthy of love, that healing is possible, that change is a choice I can make every single day. You stood by me when I faced my abuser. You built a business from the ground up. You raised your brothers into incredible men. You're the strongest, most amazing person I've ever met. And I don't want to spend another day without knowing you're mine and I'm yours. Will you marry me?" Kennedy's vision blurred with tears. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Jared slid the ring onto her finger. It was perfect, simple. A single diamond on a platinum band, exactly what Kennedy would have chosen. "Love you," Jard said, standing up and pulling her into his arms. "Love you too," Kennedy said. "So much." They kissed, and somewhere in the background the Seahawks scored a touchdown. Neither of them noticed. The wedding was 3 months later. Kennedy didn't want a big ceremony. Didn't want the pressure of a society wedding with hundreds of guests she didn't know. She wanted simple, intimate, real. So they got married in the backyard of the mansion overlooking Lake Washington. 50 guests, just family and close friends. Alina was Kennedy's maid of honor. Sophia and Morgan, who Kennedy had become close with, were her bridesmaids. Diego was Jard's best man. Isaiah and Caleb stood up with him too. And Kennedy walked down the aisle in a white pantsuit, custom tailored. Beautiful, completely, utterly her. The jacket was fitted perfectly to her lean frame. The pants flowed elegantly. A silk train attached to the back of the jacket cascaded behind her like a waterfall. She wore her grandmother's silver watch. Her something old, simple diamond studs that Jard had given her. Her something new, a blue ribbon tied around the bouquet Alina had made. Her something blue. And a handkerchief from her mother's wedding dress in her pocket. Her something borrowed. Zaya walked her down the aisle. Caleb walked beside them. When they reached Jard, both boys kissed Kennedy's cheeks and placed her hand in Jared's. "Take care of our sister," Isaiah said quietly. "Always," Jard promised. The ceremony was short and sweet. They'd written their own vows. Jard went first. "Kennedy, when I met you, I was broken. I didn't believe I could be loved. Didn't believe I deserved to be loved. You proved me wrong. You saw all my broken pieces and didn't try to fix them. You just loved me while I learned to fix myself. You challenged me. You stood by me. You made me believe I could be better. And I promised to spend the rest of my life proving that belief wasn't misplaced. I promised to respect your boundaries, to value your voice, to support your dreams, to be the partner you deserve. I love you, Kennedy Taylor. Thank you for choosing me." There wasn't a dry eye in the audience. Then it was Kennedy's turn. "Jared, a year and a half ago, I walked into your house expecting a job. What I found was a partnership. You supported me when I needed it most. You paid for my brother's surgery without hesitation. You invested in my business when no one else believed in it. You loved my brothers like they were your own family. You respected my values even when they challenged you. You showed me that real love isn't about passion or attraction, though we have plenty of both." She smiled and people laughed. Real love is about choice. It's about choosing someone every single day, choosing to honor them, to respect them, to grow with them. And I choose you, Jared Pierce, today and every day for the rest of my life. Jared was crying openly now. The officiant smiled. "By the power vested in me by the state of Washington, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." Jared cupped Kennedy's face in his hands and kissed her like she was the answer to every prayer he'd ever whispered. The audience erupted in cheers. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were grinning like idiots. "Hi, wife," Jared said. "Hi, husband," Kennedy replied. They walked back down the aisle together, hand in hand, as the September sun broke through the clouds and bathed everything in golden light. The reception was perfect, dinner under string lights, dancing on the lawn. Speeches that made everyone laugh and cry. Diego gave a speech about watching Jared transform from a broken man into someone capable of real love. Sophia gave a speech about how she knew Kennedy was the one when she ordered her own meal at their first double date, instead of letting Jared order for her. Alina gave a speech about how she'd threatened to steal Jared if Kennedy didn't marry him, and she'd meant it. Isaiah and Caleb gave a joint speech about how Kennedy had sacrificed everything to raise them, and how Jared had better treat her like the queen she was or answer to them. Uncle Reg gave a speech about second chances and redemption, and being proud of the man Jared had become. Mrs. Pierce gave a speech about gaining a daughter and losing her fear that her son would never find happiness. And then Jared and Kennedy gave speeches to each other. Jared thanked Kennedy for seeing him, really seeing him. For not running when things got hard, for believing in him when he didn't believe in himself. Kennedy thanked Jared for supporting her dreams, for loving her brothers, for respecting her boundaries, for being patient while she learned to trust. There wasn't a dry eye in the entire backyard. When the speeches were done and the cake was cut and the first dance was over, Kennedy and Jared snuck away to the edge of the property. They stood looking out at Lake Washington, the lights from Seattle twinkling across the water. "We did it," Kennedy said softly. "We did it," Jared agreed. "I'm married to you. I'm married to you." Kennedy turned to him. "Are you happy?" "I've never been happier in my entire life," Jared said honestly. "Are you?" "So happy I could burst," Kennedy admitted. "Good." Jared pulled her close. "Because this is just the beginning, Mrs. Pierce." Kennedy wrinkled her nose. "I'm keeping Taylor professionally." Kennedy Taylor Pierce. Just Kennedy Taylor for work. "But I'll be Kennedy Pierce everywhere else. I can live with that." They stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, watching the sun set over the water. Behind them, music and laughter drifted from the reception. Ahead of them, an entire life waited to be lived. "Thank you," Jared said quietly. "What?" "For giving me a second chance. For believing I could change, for loving me when I didn't think I was worthy of love." Kennedy reached up and touched his face. "You were always worthy, Jared. You just needed someone to show you. You're that someone. That someone." Jared kissed her, slow and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Kennedy smiled. "So what happens now?" "Now," Jared grinned. "Now we go on our honeymoon, 2 weeks in the Maldives, private beach house. No work, no distractions, just us." "Just us," Kennedy repeated. "I like the sound of that." "Good. Because you're stuck with me now, Mrs. Pierce." "Decision I ever made," Kennedy said, and she meant it. 1 year later, Kennedy stood in the main training room of Taylor Security Consultants, watching a class of 12 women practice defensive moves. The business had grown beyond her wildest expectations. She now had 3 locations across Seattle. She'd hired 4 instructors. She'd landed contracts with 6 major corporations for security training. She was making a difference. Actually making a difference. And it felt incredible. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Jared. "Jared, how's class going?" "Kennedy, good. We're working on escape techniques today." "Jared, my badass wife." "Kennedy, you know it." "Jared, dinner tonight?" "I'm cooking." "Kennedy, should I call the fire department in advance?" "Jared, rude. I've gotten better." "Kennedy, you've gotten marginally less likely to burn down the kitchen." "I'll be home by 6. "Jared, can't wait." "Love you, Kennedy." "Love you too." Kennedy put her phone away and refocused on her class. When the session ended, the women gathered around her. "Miss Taylor," one of them said, a young woman named Aisha who joined the class after a bad experience with an ex-boyfriend. I just want to say thank you for creating this space, for teaching us that we can protect ourselves. You've changed my life." Kennedy's throat tightened. "You changed your own life, Aisha. I just gave you the tools. Still, thank you." After everyone left, Kennedy locked up and headed home. Home was the mansion now. She'd moved in after the wedding. It had taken some adjusting, going from a tiny apartment to 15,000 square feet, but they'd made it work. They'd redecorated one of the guest rooms into Kennedy's home office, filled it with her books and her degrees and her business plans. They'd turned another room into a gym where Kennedy could practice her Krav Maga. They'd made the cold, empty museum into a home. When Kennedy walked in, she could smell something burning. She rushed to the kitchen to find Jard waving a towel at the smoke detector, which was beeping loudly. "I can explain," he said. "You burned dinner," Kennedy said, trying not to laugh. "I burned one dish. The rest is fine." Kennedy looked at the stove. 3 pots were cooking perfectly. One pan had something black in it that might have once been chicken. "Okay," she admitted. "You burned one dish. That's actually progress." "Right," Jard grinned. "I'm learning." Kennedy walked over and kissed him. "You're learning. Now step aside and let me salvage this." "Yes, ma'am." They cooked together, moving around each other with practiced ease, over dinner which ended up being delicious despite the one casualty. Jard looked at Kennedy with an expression she couldn't quite read. "What?" she asked. "Have something to tell you." Kennedy's heart jumped. "Okay. Been talking to my therapist about Vivienne, about reporting her. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to file a police report. I know it probably won't go anywhere after all these years, but I need to do it for me to take my power back completely." Kennedy reached across the table and took his hand. "I'm proud of you. Are so proud. That takes incredible courage." Jared smiled. "I have something else to tell you. News. I want to start a family." Kennedy's breath caught. "You do?" "Yeah, I mean not right this second, but soon. I want kids with you, Kennedy. I want to be the kind of father mine never got to be. I want to build something good, something that lasts." Kennedy's eyes filled with happy tears. "I want that too. Yeah, let's build a family." Jared stood up, pulled Kennedy to her feet, and kissed her like his life depended on it. When they finally broke apart, both of them were smiling. "Love our life," Jared said. "Me too," Kennedy agreed. "Me too." Later that night, Kennedy stood in the bathroom looking at her reflection in the mirror. She was wearing an oversized t-shirt and shorts. No makeup. Hair in its natural short cut. She looked exactly like herself. And for the first time in her entire life, Kennedy looked at her reflection and thought, "I'm beautiful not despite how she looked." Because of how she looked, this body had survived childhood bullying, had survived loss and grief and poverty, had raised 2 boys into good men, had built a business from nothing, had learned to trust again, had learned to love. This body was strong, capable, worthy. Kennedy smiled at her reflection. She heard Jard's voice from the bedroom. "You coming to bed?" "Yeah," Kennedy called back. "Just a minute." She took one last look at herself in the mirror. "Thank you," she whispered to her reflection. To the younger Kennedy who'd been called names and made to feel less than. To the Kennedy who'd lost her parents and kept going anyway. To the Kennedy who'd taken a job as a housekeeper and found a husband instead. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for believing you were worth more. Thank you for being brave enough to love. Kennedy turned off the light and went to bed, to her husband, to her home, to her life. And as she drifted off to sleep in Jard's arms, she thought about the white shirt. The simple, plain white shirt she'd worn every day for months because it was all she had, the shirt that had become her uniform, her armor. Her statement of who she was. She still wore white shirts. Not because she had to now, she could afford a whole wardrobe if she wanted, but because she wanted to, because that white shirt represented something. It represented authenticity, simplicity, knowing who you were and not apologizing for it. It represented Kennedy. And Kennedy Taylor Pierce was exactly who she was supposed to be. This story wasn't just about romance. It was about healing, about second chances, about knowing your worth even when the world tells you you're not enough. It was about a woman who wore the same white shirt every day and never apologized for it. It was about a man who learned that respect and boundaries aren't weaknesses. They're the foundation of real love. It was about 2 broken people who chose to heal together instead of breaking each other. If this story touched you, drop a red in the comments. If you believe in love that waits, that respects, that heals, that grows, share this video. If you've ever felt like you weren't enough, remember Kennedy. Remember that your worth isn't in your body, your clothes, or your bank account. Your worth is in who you are. And you are enough. Exactly as you are, thank you for watching this journey with me. Subscribe if you haven't already because we have so many more stories to tell, stories about real love, real growth, real people doing the hard work to be better. Until next time, remain blessed.